A hush like snowfall gathers over the path, a silence so complete it seems to have weight, settling over your shoulders, pressing gently into the folds of your breath. It rises with you from the last lantern-lit village, where windows still smolder, with the final warmth of voices, and spills into the hush-blue timberline that waits beyond. The light of the village is already dimming behind you, folding itself into the valley like a thought withdrawing from memory, leaving only a faint shimmer in the air, as if the night is closing a book with care. Before you, the path glows with a fragile promise, not bright, but steady, guiding you into the trees that gather like a congregation of listeners. Pale moths stir in the dimness, their wings turning like slow ideas, hesitant yet persistent, circling the air as though rewriting the darkness in invisible ink. They rise from the moss with the rhythm of breath, vanishing into the canopy only to return in softer spirals, drawn to something unseen, perhaps the warmth of your passing, perhaps the memory you carry. Dust glows faintly where the moths disturb it, as if each wingbeat awakens a particle of forgotten light, and the air itself begins to shimmer with remnants of a day that has already slipped into absence. Beneath your steps, the stones hold warmth, unexpected, as though the earth itself remembers you. Each footfall presses into the path not as weight, but as recognition, and in response, whispers loosen from the ground and travel ahead, weaving between the trunks. They move like messengers, rehearsing your arrival, announcing in secret tones that the wanderer has returned. The sound is almost too soft to hear, yet you feel it gathering in your chest, threading into your pulse, urging you to walk as though the forest itself has been waiting on either side of the path. The grasses bend in unison, not with the wind, but as though a moon unseen, veiled by distance, has exhaled across the earth. Their movement is tender, ceremonial, like a silent bow offered to the night. The scent shifts with their bending, pine resin rising sharp as memory, mingled with the must of library paper, the cool breath of a river lying still in the dark, and the faint sulfur of matches struck in rooms where no one speaks. Each note lingers in the air, not layered, but braided, each scent reminding you of something half-remembered, though no moment attaches itself completely to your thoughts. Far away, a bell begins to count the distances. It does not toll in numbers, but in echoes, each one folding into the next, traveling outward, as though searching for something it lost long ago. The echoes do not fade into emptiness, but return in spirals, brushing against your sleeves like letters you once meant to send, each one a fragment of a voice, unspoken, a promise, unsent. You carry them without effort, the forest tucking them into the fabric of your presence, as though your very walk is the reply. The pathway narrows slightly as the trees gather closer, their trunks straight as pillars, bark silvered by moonlight. You cannot see. Above, the canopy knits itself into patterns that shift with your gaze. One moment, a cathedral roof where shadows kneel in silence. The next, a woven net holding fragments of stars that slip through in cautious drips of light. A breeze threads through the needles like a harpist, plucking notes that shimmer and dissolve in the cool air, and without trying, your spine learns the song, bending gently to its rhythm, swaying as though remembering a dance older than time. As you walk, time itself begins to lose its edge. Moments no longer arrive in order, but drift across your vision like veils of mist, one overlapping another, each softening the one before it. The air feels thick with memory, though none of it belongs to you alone. It is as if the forest has collected all the forgotten thoughts of those who once walked here and now breathes them out again, one by one, a chorus of silences shared among strangers. You catch glimpses of them in the corners of your perception, footsteps alongside your own that leave no trace, voices that dissolve before you can turn, shapes that pause between the trees only to become shadows of shadows. They do not frighten you. They move with the same patience as the moths, waiting, circling, holding vigil. At times, the pathway seems almost too luminous, as though reluctant to remain on earth. The stones gleam faintly, not polished by rain or wear, but by something inward, as if they carry their own remembered light. You imagine the steps of countless travelers layering here, their weight pressed into silence, their breaths folded into the soil, and the thought comforts you that even in solitude your walk is shared. The forest hums with this truth, each sound a thread from a tapestry already woven, each silence a space left for your presence to complete the pattern. The bell tolls again, further, this time distant yet close, the way memory can be. Its voice curves around the trees, slow and deliberate, carrying not urgency but inevitability. You wonder what it counts, perhaps not hours, but distances of the soul. The length between where you are and where you have always been going. You do not resist it. Each echo folds deeper into your steps, guiding you as surely as the luminous path itself. The air cools as you rise further into the timberline, but not with the chill of absence. It is the coolness of waiting, of a breath held before speech, of a sky preparing its stars for unveiling. The silence thickens into substance, soft and pliant. It muffles the forest into reverence, and your body responds without thought, your shoulders lowering, your breath deepening, your pulse slowing to meet the rhythm of this place. You feel yourself belonging to the hush, not as an intruder, but as someone finally recognized. Somewhere in the folds of distance, the moths have multiplied. Their pale wings flicker between the trunks, scattering like fragments of old manuscripts carried in the air. They drift not aimlessly, but with intent, gathering around unseen nodes of light, congregating in spirals that resemble constellations fallen to earth. One brushes against your cheek with the weightlessness of snow, and for an instant you are certain you feel not wing but whisper, not touch but message, yet the meaning escapes, dissolving into the cool air before it can be heard. Still, the sensation lingers. You sense that the forest is not empty, not silent, but speaking in a language just beyond the threshold of waking. Every sound, every hush, every echo, every thread of breeze seems to circle around a single thought it cannot quite deliver. And so you keep walking, patient, open, knowing that whatever waits ahead is already moving toward you, already preparing to meet you in the luminous heart of the night. The pathway curves like breath drawn in slowly, rising into the timberline with a patience that feels older than stone. Every turn reveals not more distance, but another layer of silence, another fold of dream stitched into the night. The trees thicken around you, bark rough as script carved by centuries of wind, resin gleaming where light dares to linger. You run your fingers across one trunk and feel warmth there too. faint but steady, as though the forest itself carries a pulse, and the rhythm of your heart slows to join it. Shadows lengthen not because the night is deepening, but because the path itself glows more brightly. Each stone shines with its own secret, small reservoirs of light hidden in cracks, spilling out as you tread upon them. The glow is never enough to blind, only to guide, each footfall softening into radiance before vanishing again. It feels like walking on memory, the kind you cannot quite place, faces glimpsed at thresholds, voices carried half a lifetime, fragments that belong to you and to others at once. The bell tolls again, and this time the echo seems to come from within your chest. It rolls outward, touching the trees like a hand stroking harp strings. The sound curls around branches, travels down roots, and rests in the moss like a coin left for safekeeping. Each echo grows quieter, but not weaker. It simply sinks deeper, settling into places too far for your hearing, but not beyond your knowing. The bell is not a command, it is an invitation. The forest answers, with gestures, small and deliberate. Pine needles shiver, though no breeze moves. A hollow in the ground breathes mist upward, as if the earth sighs in its sleep. Somewhere close by, water slips across stone with a sound too soft to be stream, too steady to be rain. You follow the murmur until you find a narrow rill coursing alongside the path, its surface carrying threads of light, as though it too has learned to borrow. The glow, the current keeps pace with you, weaving sound into the hush, reminding you that movement and stillness can be the same. You pause where the stream widens into a pool the size of a mirror. The surface is so clear it reflects not the sky, but the thought of sky, a depth that does not end. When you bend closer, the reflection does not show your face. It shows a corridor of light, a hallway lined with doors. Some are open, some closed, some half ajar, their frames painted in colors you cannot name. One door is marked with a bell's shadow, another with the faint outline of a moth. You blink, and the image disperses into ripples, leaving only water, only silence. Yet the knowledge remains. The path is not only through forest, but through memory, through thresholds uncounted. The moths gather more thickly as you walk on, their pale bodies weaving constellations in the air. At times they form lines that resemble writing brief inscriptions that dissolve before you can read. At other times they circle your head as though crowning you in silence. Their wings beat soundlessly, yet the movement seems to generate whispers, fragments of words you cannot hold, drifting through your ears like snow that melts on contact. You do not chase the meaning, you let it pass through, and in doing so, you feel yourself opened wider. The scent of the forest changes as you climb. Resin deepens into something richer, mingled with damp stone and the faint sweetness of moss. After rain, it reminds you of long-forgotten rooms, dusty libraries, attics where sunlight filtered through cracks, chapels emptied of voices but not of prayers. The path becomes less a trail and more an aisle, and you feel as though you are walking not outdoors but within a vast cathedral, its roof woven of branches, its pews formed by rows of silent trees. The hush here is not emptiness, it is reverence. A doorway appears suddenly in the air ahead of you. Not built, not carved, simply present. It hangs between two trunks where branches cross like slender arms, its frame luminous but unsteady, as though woven from breath and shadow. The door is ajar, and from the crack spills a draught cool as rain that fell years ago. The smell of it is unmistakable, distant thunder, wet stone, earth lifting its voice in praise. You lift your hand to push, but the door drifts shut before you can touch it, folding into mist. In its place, the moths scatter like sparks, vanishing into the dark. Still, you do not stop. The path bends into a hollow where fireflies hover in pairs, each light pulsing like the slow beat of a sleeping heart. They drift apart and return, pages turning in an unseen book. You walk among them carefully, each step stirring the air into ripples, each ripple leaving traces of brightness on your skin. You feel marked, gently, as though the forest writes its signature upon you. The bell tolls again, closer now, its resonance deeper, almost within reach. The sound swells through the trees, making the branches tremble, the stones hum, the air itself vibrate. This time, when the echo folds into your chest, you hear more than sound. You hear your name spoken, not in voice, but in tone, a note shaped into the curve of memory. It is not the name the world calls you by. It is older, more fragile, belonging to the marrow rather than the mouth. It lingers only a breath, then vanishes, leaving you with the ache of recognition. Your steps slow. The path narrows to a thread of light, weaving between roots and rocks, pulling you deeper into the hush. The air grows cooler still, the silence thicker. Yet your body feels lighter, as though the forest has taken some of your weight. Each breath you release, resible, a veil of mist drifting upward and dissolving among branches. Each exhale feels like a letting go, as though the night is gently unburdening you. The moths fall away, the fireflies drift behind, the sound of the stream recedes. Ahead lies only darkness, yet the pathway insists, glowing faint as embers, leading you forward. You obey, not out of duty, but because the hush has entered your bones, and your body moves to its rhythm. You are no longer walking into the forest. You are walking into the pause between heartbeats, into the silence where the world holds its breath. The pathway grows thin, its light fading into threads, as though it is reluctant to remain visible any longer. You follow carefully, each step more like a thought than a movement, each moment stretched into stillness. The forest leans closer, its shadows no longer standing apart, but folding around you, tender and encompassing. Silence deepens until it becomes a presence of its own, a companion walking beside you without form. You feel watched, not by eyes, but by time itself, measuring you with patience instead of judgment. The bell sounds again, yet this time it is not distant. It blooms directly overhead, though no tower rises above. The toll is soft, steady, a single note stretched into eternity. It does not command, it does not warn, it simply reminds. The sound fills the air, fills the ground, fills your chest, until it feels as if you are nothing but resonance. When the note finally ebbs, the silence it leaves behind feels sacred, a space cleared for something about to arrive. The path leads you into a small clearing, and here the light behaves differently. It no longer clings to the stones, but rises into the air like mist, surrounding you in a soft veil. The clearing feels circular, enclosed, a ring of trees standing as sentinels. Their branches arc overhead, forming a dome where no stars intrude, only darkness, thick and protective. In the center of the clearing stands a tree older than the rest. Its trunk vast, its bark lined with fissures glowing faintly from within. You step closer, drawn without question, and lay your hand upon its surface. The tree is warm. The warmth spreads through your palm, up your arm, into your chest. You close your eyes and hear the sound of roots whispering beneath the soil. Deep and endless, their voices threading through stone and water, carrying stories to ancient four words. For a moment you are both listener and participant, both wanderer and root, both traveler and forest. The feeling is so complete, it feels like a homecoming, though you cannot recall ever arriving here before. When you open your eyes, the tree's fissures have widened slightly, and within them glows the faint outline of a door. Not a door built by hand, but one grown into being, shaped by years of silence and time. It does not open, it waits. You sense that its moment is not yet, that you must travel deeper still before it will yield. Yet, even closed, it feels like a promise, a reminder that every path leads not outward but inward. Two doors waiting in the marrow of the night. The clearing holds its breath as if to seal the moment. The moths do not return. The bell does not sound again. Only the hush remains, and within it the certainty that the journey has only just begun. You step back from the tree, leaving the warmth behind, and the pathway unfurls again, curling into the forest like smoke seeking an unseen sky. Its glow is dimmer now, but no less sure. You follow, your steps quiet, your breath steady, the hush carrying you forward. Somewhere ahead, the night prepares another threshold, another image waiting to be revealed. You walk toward it, not afraid, only listening, only ready. As the luminous pathway fades and the forest of night gathers you deeper into its endless dream. It begins with a hum, so faint you wonder at first if it lives inside your chest rather than among the trees. A low silver vibration rising from the leaves, as though the forest has been holding one long note all day and only now, at the threshold of night, dares to release it. The sound is not loud. It lingers like the aftertaste of music, like the breath left behind when a voice has faded. It fills the air with a shimmer that is not sound alone, but texture, a subtle trembling felt along the skin of your arms, the edges of your breath, the quiet ringing of your thoughts. Above, the sky unfolds in fragile tones. It is not dark, not yet. Instead, it carries the pale underside of a heron's wing, stretched wide across the horizon, moving with slow deliberation toward night. The first stars arrive shyly, like seeds tossed into dusk that has only just been tilled. They do not glitter. They hover, waiting to see if the darkness will hold them. Their light mingles with the silver hum below, and together they create a quiet architecture that feels both vast and fragile, as though the world itself is balancing on the edge of a whispered chord. Beneath your feet, the road unfurls. It does not appear all at once. Rather, it reveals itself step by step, felt more than seen, woven from moonlit breaths that hover just above the soil. It is soft, forgiving, as though each step is welcomed rather than borne. The road curves gently between bracken and fern, slipping into shadows that part for you, as though the plants have been waiting for your arrival. Rehearsing how they would move, you follow the curve until it bends around a stump that glimmers faintly, remembering the lightning that once struck it. The wood is scarred, yet polished, as if the storm's violence has been transmuted into a quiet glow. You rest your hand upon it and feel not heat, not cold, but the still pulse of something that once burned and has since learned to forgive. The surface is threaded with lichen braided like cufflinks left behind, a forgotten detail on a garment no one remembers wearing. The stump is not a ruin, but a reliquary, a vessel for the memory of fire. The silver hum deepens as you walk on, weaving with new voices. Nearby, a stream speaks. Its language is round and consonant, syllables formed by the tapping of water against stone. The current carries phrases smooth and deliberate, and every pause it takes is filled by the patient chorus of crickets, rehearsing their script with unwavering devotion. Together, stream and crickets create a dialogue, an old conversation repeated each night, never tiring, never altered, as though their purpose is not to speak, but to keep the silence alive by filling it gently. The air itself grows richer, carrying scents that feel like memories. Warm wood resinous, faintly sweet mingles with cool iron, sharp and grounding. Beneath it all lies another note, subtler, the smell of a lantern just extinguished. It is the scent of smoke folding into absence, the moment of release when flame becomes memory. It carries with it the feeling of forgiveness, of someone deciding not to hold anger any longer, but to let it dissipate like smoke in the night. You breathe it in, and with it comes a softness in your chest, a loosening you did not know you needed. The path leads you beneath branches hanging low, where small charms sway in the quiet air. They are delicate, almost invisible until they catch the faint light. Bottles without necks, bells without clappers, notes without staves, all suspended by threads finer than hair, moving in rhythms you cannot predict. They collect a kind of light that belongs to neither day nor night, a glow that seems to emerge from their hollowness, as though emptiness itself were luminous. When the breeze stirs them, they do not ring, they do not break, they shimmer, and in their shimmer you hear the possibility of forgotten songs, the outlines of melodies that will never be written. You walk slowly, not wishing to disturb them. One charm drifts closer, brushing your shoulder, and for an instant you hear the faintest tone, not with your ears, but in your bones, a resonance that feels like recognition. It lingers only long enough to assure you that you are not alone, then dissolves again into silence. Beyond the charms, the pathway widens briefly into a glade, where the hum grows stronger, the air quivers with silver light, and the ground itself seems to glow in threads, delicate veins of brightness, pulsing as though the forest is exhaling through the soil. The stream curves into the clearing too, widening into a pool where the surface is textured with concentric rings, as if unseen hands were tapping gently upon it. Each ripple carries light outward, softening into the grasses until they glisten like blades edged with moon. You kneel at the water's edge and look within. The reflection is not of your face, but of a window, tall and arched, set in a wall of stone. Behind the glass burns a single candle, its flame steady, though no hand tends it. The sight fills you with an ache, both tender and distant, as if you have once known the room to which this window belongs, though you cannot recall when. You blink, and the water clears, returning only the pale underside of branches, the slow migration of moths, the faint stars gathering above. Yet the ache remains, planted within you like a seed. The hum continues, surrounding you now, filling the clearing, filling the forest, filling the quiet space within your breath. You rise and follow the path onward, each step lighter, each sound softer, the silver note carrying you deeper into the waiting night. The silver hum follows you, not from behind, not ahead, but from everywhere at once. The way silence itself follows thought. Each step you take seems to thread you further into its resonance, until it feels less like sound and more like atmosphere. Something breathed rather than heard. It wraps around the trunks, pours into the spaces between leaves, saturates the moss, until even the ground feels like a voice speaking in tones too low for comprehension. You walk inside this chord, as if inside a cathedral, your breath a soft harmony joining the endless hymn. The path narrows again, curling between ferns, heavy with dew. Each frond glitters in the silver light, each drop of moisture trembling like an eye that has just blinked awake. When you brush against them, the droplets slide onto your skin, cool and luminous, as though the forest is leaving its script upon your body. Your arms shimmer faintly, and you imagine yourself being inscribed into a text the night has been writing for centuries. Each traveler, another line, another syllable in a song too vast to finish. The road tilts downward, leading you toward a hollow where the air grows dense with fog. The mist coils slowly, layering the world into translucent veils. Shapes blur, branches dissolve into suggestion, and the sound of the stream grows distant even as you approach it. The hum deepens here, becoming a drone that vibrates inside your chest, slow and steady as a heartbeat magnified. You pause, and in the fog you glimpse silhouettes, figures moving with the pace of drifting thought. They do not look at you, nor at one another. They wander in circles, in spirals, their outlines dissolving into mist before they can take full form. You recognize them without knowing. They are memories that never completed themselves, fragments of choices unmade. They drift here because the forest keeps them safe. One figure pauses, as if sensing your presence. Its head tilts, its hand raises, and for an instant its face appears in the shifting fog. Your own face, blurred, softened, as though painted in water. Before you can breathe, the mist folds, and the figure dissolves, carried away into the deeper hollow. The moment lingers inside you like a half-heard question, and though you cannot answer, you know you must continue. The pathway leads you across a small bridge of stone, worn and crooked, as though laid by hands long ago and long forgotten. Beneath it, the stream swells into a narrow channel, water glimmering with silver sparks that rise and vanish, as if stars themselves have slipped into the current. The sound is richer now, more articulate, each ripple shaped into syllables. You lean closer and realize the water is speaking not to you, not aloud, but to itself, reciting the story of its journey, naming every stone, every curve, every shadow it has ever known. Its voice is endless, tender, unhurried. You listen, until you feel as though you have been carried along with it, a pebble in its course, polished by its touch. Beyond the bridge, the path widens into another clearing. Here the trees form an open ring, their trunks evenly spaced, their branches braided into a woven canopy that lets the starlight fall in measured patterns, like lace spread upon the ground. In the center of the circle, a pillar rises, not of stone, not of wood, but of glass. It catches the faint light. You approach slowly, drawn by the way each ribbon seems to beckon, shimmering and vanishing again. The glass pillar hums, and you realize the sound you have been hearing all along may have begun here within its surface. You see shifting images rooms filled with dust and candlelight, staircases leading into clouds, a door swinging open without hinges. They overlap, dissolve, reappear, never constant, never still. You lift your hand, and when your palm touches the glass, the hum resonates through your bones, filling you with a sensation both heavy and weightless. For a heartbeat you see only darkness, and within that darkness, a single lantern swaying as if carried by an unseen traveler. You reach toward it, but the image folds away, replaced by the faint reflection of your own eyes. The pillar does not release you quickly. It lingers, pressing its resonance into your skin until you feel as though you have become an instrument, tuned to its note. When you finally step back, your body carries the vibration, and each breath you take feels infused with light. Clearing watches in silence, the trees leaning slightly, as if listening to what you have received. A faint path branches away from the clearing, narrower than before, bordered with moss so soft it seems liquid. The air shifts as you follow it, warmer now, carrying scents of cedar and something faintly metallic, like the edge of rain. The forest is quieter here, the hum reduced to a background pulse, leaving space for other sounds. A rustle of feathers passes above, though no bird appears. A creak of rope echoes faintly, though no rope hangs. The path feels like a memory you have not yet lived, each step reminding you of something you will someday forget. Ahead, between two leaning trees, you see a collection of glass charms, like those you passed earlier, but here they are more numerous, dozens, swaying from unseen threads. They do not chime. They glow faintly, each one filled with a soft light, as if they have captured pieces of dawn and preserved them. You step among them, and the air shimmers with quiet radiance. Some glow gold, some silver, some pale blue, like frozen breath. When you pause, the charms drift closer, and in their glow you see faces blurred, fleeting eyes closing, lips whispering. None remain long enough to be recognized, yet each one feels familiar, as though the forest is showing you the gallery of everyone you have ever dreamed but never remembered. The charms sway gently, guiding you toward a larger one at the center. This charm is different, deeper, its light pulsing slowly. When you peer within, you see not a face but a door, luminous and closed. Its frame is carved with patterns of moth wings and stars, and though the image is small, it feels immense. The door does not open, but it glows brighter as you watch, until its light spills from the charm and paints your hands, your chest, your breath. You feel it press into you, not demanding, only reminding. There are doors ahead. There are always doors ahead. When you finally step beyond the charms, the path resumes, quieter now, the hum receding, the air still. The stream returns to your side, its voice calmer, whispering in tones you cannot follow. The road bends into darkness where the stars do not reach, and there, faintly, another sound emerges, the distant toll of a bell. Not silver, not hum, but deep and resonant, calling you onward. You pause only once more to look back. The charms sway in silence, their lights flickering like the last notes of a song. Then you turn, and walk into the darkness that waits, the bell's echo leading you deeper into the endless, unfolding dream. The path presses into shadow, narrower now, its glow subdued, as though conserving itself for the deeper journey. The trees close in above you, their branches stitching the sky until even the stars withdraw, leaving only a dim silver haze seeping from the edges of leaves. The air has weight here, thick and reverent, as though you are walking not through forest, but through the breath of something vast, something older than the soil beneath your steps. The bell sounds again. This time the tone is low, solemn, carrying across the dark like a hand extended in silence. You stop, and the echo folds around you, settling into your ribs, into your throat, into the hollow spaces of your thoughts. The forest listens with you, each leaf stilled, each root waiting. When the note fades, what remains is not emptiness, but expectation, as if the night itself has asked you a question it will not yet reveal. The pathway inclines gently upward, climbing a slope where the soil grows thin, stones exposed like old bones. Moss clings stubbornly to their surfaces, glowing faint in patches that guide your steps. At the crest, the trees draw back, and a clearing opens wide, circular, edged with trunks that bow inward as if in reverence. In its center rises a cairn of stones, stacked without mortar, their edges worn smooth by centuries of weather. Each stone glimmers faintly, not with reflected starlight, but with a light that seems to leak from within, as though the cairn itself remembers fire. You step closer, drawn by the quiet radiance. The hum returns here, soft, steady, resonating from the cairn's heart. You kneel, place your palm upon the top stone, and the vibration threads into your skin. It carries with it impressions, voices, murmuring prayers without words, hands laying down burdens, footsteps circling and departing. You realize that countless travelers have come here before you, each leaving behind a fragment of silence, a fragment of self. The cairn is not only stone, it is memory, built layer upon layer, echo upon echo. For a moment you close your eyes, and the world drifts. You feel yourself dissolving into the hum, your weight lightened, your breath stretched thin. You sense the presence of those who walked before you, not as faces, but as warmth, surrounding you in unseen company. It is not loneliness you feel here, but a deep companionship, a chorus of those who have passed into the same hush, who have stood where you stand now and continued forward into the waiting dark. When you rise, the cairn's glow seems to brighten, briefly acknowledging your presence, accepting your silence as another stone laid among its layers. You turn, and the path extends once more, curling into the trees beyond. The bell tolls again, distant, now calling you further. As you walk from the clearing, the air shifts cooler, quieter, the hum receding into memory. The forest exhales, and with its breath the moths return, faint glimmers weaving between branches, drifting like fragments of forgotten letters, carried on unseen currents. They lead you onward, their pale wings scattering light in patterns that resemble constellations just forming. The path narrows, bends, and disappears into shadow. You follow without hesitation, your steps steady, your breath slow. Behind you, the cairn fades into silence, its glow hidden by trees. Ahead, the bell's echo waits, promising another threshold, another image, another dream. You do not hurry, You listen, you walk, you allow the forest to gather you deeper, deeper still, into its endless, unfolding night. A wind rises from the low meadows, not sharp, not strong, but soft and sweet, carrying with it the taste of wild honey. It brushes across your lips as though offering a memory rather than a flavor, a sweetness longed for, but never fully held. In its breath comes another sound, reeds practicing a single note, tentative and patient, repeating themselves until silence takes pity and joins them. The sound is incomplete, as if the air itself is tuning an unseen instrument, preparing for a song that has not yet been written. You pause, and the forest seems to lean closer, listening to the same rehearsal. The note trembles through the grasses, lingers along the bark, slides beneath your ribs until you are humming without sound, your own breath carrying the vibration. It feels like recognition, like a forgotten chord brushing the edges of your mind. The honeyed wind moves on, and you follow, drawn deeper into the soft cadence of night. Ahead, a stand of birches gathers, their trunks pale as bone, their crowns whispering together as if confiding in hushed tones. Their tongues of paper bark curl outward, pages peeled by wind and weather, each strip trembling as though holding words not yet spoken. You draw closer and see the edges, darkened like singed letters, but never consumed, as if the fire stopped just short of devouring them. The birches lean inward toward one another, conspirators in silence, keeping their secrets folded within the inkless script of their bark. You place your hand on one, and the surface is cool, smooth, tender, as if it were skin. The bark curls beneath your touch, and for a moment you believe you hear the faint scratch of quills across parchment, a flurry of messages written and hidden, waiting in the grain. You do not press harder. You step back, leaving the birches to their confidences, their unwritten language rustling faintly in the breeze. Beneath your feet the ground changes. It becomes a sable ribbon, rich and dark, woven with sparks of mica, that glimmer faintly when touched by the dim glow of the path. Each step sets off a quiet shimmer, as though you are stepping onto the memory of a candle that once burned here. The light does not persist, it rises, then fades, but the impression lingers, warmth carried upward into your souls, as though reminding you that even extinguished flames can still illuminate. The ribbon bends between trunks, and fog gathers in its hollows. The mist arranges itself into corridors, tall and wavering, each one suggesting a passage into some deeper chamber. Yet, just as you turn your gaze to follow one, it dissolves, collapsing into shapeless vapor, forgetting what it intended. The fog behaves as dreams do, constructing houses with impossible staircases, then forgetting where the doors were placed, leaving only the echo of walls. You walk slowly, not resisting its uncertainty, letting the corridors form and fade around you, as though the forest is inviting you to wander its memory rather than its substance. Somewhere high above, you hear movement, not leaves, not branches, but a bell swinging in air, though no tower rises here. It does not strike, does not ring, it only moves, and what you hear is the air deciding to yield, the deep inhalation of space itself shifting around weight. You tilt your head, listening, and though no sound follows, the silence feels altered, as if something vast has taken a single step and now waits just beyond sight. The pathway threads onward, luminous and reticent, a line of breath woven through lacework, leaves. The glow beneath your feet is subtler now, less a flame than an exhale, a delicate persistence guiding you with restraint. You feel no urgency, only invitation. The night has taken your hand without touching it, and you follow willingly, carried by the sense that to stop here would be to abandon a question asked long ago. The birches thin, giving way to deeper woods. Their pale trunks fade into darkness, leaving behind the impression of whispered pages fluttering in your mind. The air grows heavier, saturated with damp moss and the cool, metallic scent of stones. The fog rises higher, curling around your knees, then your waist, until you feel as though walking through a half-remembered tide. Each breath tastes faintly of salt and smoke, as though the forest has swallowed both ocean and fire and now exhales their mingled ghosts. You close your eyes as you walk, trusting the luminous path. The hum of unseen bells vibrates faintly in your bones, and the sweetness of honey lingers still on your tongue. You think of the reeds practicing their single note, patient, unashamed of imperfection. And in their persistence you hear a lesson the night is trying to teach you, that even the unfinished carries its own kind of music when you open your eyes. The fog has lifted slightly, revealing the faint outline of another clearing ahead. Its edges glow as though framed by a curtain of moonlight, though no moon is visible in the sky. Between you and that glow lies another stand of birches, their bark trembling with unwritten words, their trunks leaning closer to each other, whispering what you cannot hear. You move forward, and the path glimmers faintly, each step writing itself into the hush of the forest. Each step another letter in the endless script of the night. The clearing opens, like a breath held too long, released at last into the cool night. You step inside, and the air shifts lighter, brighter, though the source of light is uncertain. No moon, no flame, no star declares itself, yet the space glows as though it has been brushed with silver from within. The birches circle the clearing, their pale bodies leaning inward like witnesses, their bark curling in whispers you cannot quite decipher. The ground is soft with moss, a green so deep it seems to swallow shadow whole, glowing faintly with each step you take, as though it has learned to keep its own embers alive. At the center of the clearing stands something unexpected, a chair, simple, wooden, its surface smoothed by time, as if countless figures have sat there though none remain. It faces nothing, no fire, no view, no altar, only the open air. You hesitate, then approach. The closer you come, the more you sense the weight it carries. It is not a throne, not a seat of command, but something quieter, humbler, a place where listening has been practiced for generations. You reach out and touch the backrest. The wood is cool, yet alive, pulsing faintly like the skin of a resting animal. You close your eyes, and in that stillness, hear layers of silence. One silence belongs to those who once sat here, their breaths recorded in the grain. Another silence belongs to the forest itself, patient, waiting, forgiving. Beneath both hums a deeper silence, one that feels older than language, older even than memory, the silence of beginnings. You draw your hand away, unwilling to disturb it further. From the far side of the clearing, fog begins to move again, but differently now. It does not scatter or wander. It gathers, folding itself into deliberate corridors that stretch between the trees. The walls shimmer faintly, translucent, as though the forest has remembered the architecture of dreams and chosen to rebuild them here. One corridor leads forward, narrow, uncertain. Another curls to the left, its end flickering like a lantern glimpsed from afar. A third winds to the right, fading into shadows where you think you hear the faint scratching of quills, echoing the bark pages of the birches. You do not choose. The path chooses for you. The luminous thread beneath your feet brightens, then leans toward the corridor ahead, pulling you gently, insistently. You follow, and the fog encloses you, cool against your skin, smelling faintly of wild honey still, mingled with the charred scent of paper not yet burned. As you walk, the corridor rearranges itself. Openings appear where none were, then seal again. Doorways form, arches lift, stairs descend into mist. Each shift is slow, dreamlike, as if the forest is uncertain which memory it wishes to show you. At one point, you glimpse a door ajar, light spilling from within. For a heartbeat, you see a child's desk, papers scattered, ink pooling like midnight on wood. Then the fog folds, and the door dissolves. At another turn, you see a window suspended in the mist, a curtain drawn halfway, a candle guttering in its frame. The wick flares, then extinguishes. The smoke rises into the fog, and the window disappears. You keep walking. The corridor leads you downward now, though the ground beneath remains steady. The air thickens, and the hum returns, not silver this time, but golden, resonant, as though struck from a deeper bell. It moves through your ribs, your spine reverberating with each breath. The sound is not outside you, not within you, but both, as if you are the chamber through which it passes. You remember the chair in the clearing, and understand it was not for sitting, but for becoming still enough to hear this. The corridor widens suddenly into a chamber of fog, high ceiling, round, its walls shifting like drapery caught in an unseen breeze. At the chamber center hangs a bell, not from rafters, not from beams, but from air itself, suspended by nothing. Its surface is tarnished silver, pitted with age, yet glowing faintly from within, as though it has swallowed stars. The bell does not swing, does not ring, but trembles gently, and each tremor makes the fog ripple outward, as if time itself were being stirred. You step closer, careful, reverent. The air cools, then warms, then cools again, changing with each vibration. You raise your hand, but stop short of touching the bell. Even so, you feel its resonance move through your bones, tugging at memories you cannot reach. Faces hover at the edges of thought. Voices blur into half-formed words. Moments you never lived, or perhaps forgot, entirely shimmer like heat above stone. For an instant, you feel yourself doubled, a second presence, standing behind your eyes, seeing what you see, breathing what you breathe. Then the vibration softens, and the sensation fades. The bell remains still, waiting, unwilling to reveal more. You lower your hand, bow slightly, and step back. As you do, the chamber folds in upon itself, the fog collapsing, the bell vanishing into silence. You are returned to the pathway, narrow and luminous once more, threading into the forest as though nothing had been interrupted. Yet within your chest the resonance lingers, a hum that is no longer silver but deep, golden, waiting for its answer. The trees close in again, no longer birches but dark pines, their branches heavy, their needles weaving shadows thick as fabric. The ground is strewn with cones, each one glowing faintly, as though storing fragments of starlight. When you step on them, they crunch softly, releasing a sound like sparks striking stone. The path curves upward once more, and through the boughs you glimpse a pale radiance ahead, like dawn arriving too soon. You emerge onto a ridge, and the forest falls away on either side. Below, fog fills the valleys, swirling in currents like a sleeping ocean. Above, the sky has darkened to ink, and the stars are sharper now, clustered in patterns you do not recognize. They pulse faintly, not steady like distant suns, but breathing, expanding and contracting, alive. For a moment you feel you are looking at a mirror of yourself, a sky that inhales as you inhale, that exhales as you exhale, as though the boundary between body and cosmos has thinned. The bell's hum follows, fainter now, but steady. The path curves along the ridge, lit by the mica sparks embedded in the soil, each one gleaming as though placed there intentionally, a trail of constellations set underfoot. You walk slowly, reverently, knowing that this ridge is not only landscape, but threshold, a passage between the forest you have walked and the silence that lies ahead. And as you follow the luminous thread, the honey-sweet wind returns, brushing against your cheek, carrying once more the sound of reeds rehearsing there. Single note. Only now the note is clearer, more certain, no longer practice but promise, as though the song is ready to begin. The ridge narrows, and the path winds gently downward, curling back into the shelter of trees. Their branches reach overhead like archways, shadow weaving itself into lace, broken here and there by the trembling of stars. The fog rises to meet you again, climbing the slope as though drawn to your steps, its silver currents, soft and cool, wrapping your ankles, your hands, your breath. It carries the faint sweetness of honey, still mingled now with resin and ash, as if the forest itself remembers fire. The bell hums faintly behind you, fading into distance, yet its resonance lingers in your bones, a pulse beneath your heartbeat. Each step echoes with it, each breath hums in harmony, as though you have become a fragment of its song. Ahead, the reeds continue their practice, the single note clearer now, steadier, no longer rehearsal but invocation. You follow their music into a low hollow where the ground glows faintly with mica, sparks of light scattered like fallen constellations. The hollow is quiet but not empty. A pool rests at its center, its surface still as glass, reflecting not the trees above, but a hallway of light, tall and endless, lined with doors that stretch into shadow. Some doors shine faintly, as though waiting to be opened. Others remain dark, withdrawn into silence. The reflection trembles when the reeds play their note, the doors flickering as though listening. You kneel at the edge of the pool, touch the surface, and the vision ripples outward. Doors blurring into circles of brightness, circles into stars, stars into silence. When the water stills again, there is only your reflection, softened by mist, gazing back with eyes you do not entirely recognize. You rise slowly, leaving the pool behind, and the path gathers itself once more, leading you forward. The fog thickens into veils that part at your approach, as though the forest is setting its stage, preparing the next chapter of dream. You sense thresholds ahead, not yet revealed, but waiting like voices held behind curtains. The reeds sound their note again, firm now, unbroken. And the night bends to listen. As you step into the narrowing corridor of trees, you feel the hush grow heavier, denser, as if the forest itself is drawing a breath, preparing to speak. Luminous thread beneath your feet flickers faintly, like a candle guttering before it steadies, and the darkness leans closer, warm and infinite. The path does not end. It folds inward, curving toward some deeper heart, and so you walk on, unhurried, carrying the sweetness of honey on your tongue, the resonance of bells in your chest, the promise of doors reflected in water. The night holds your hand without touching, and the dream gathers itself. First, there is the color of sleep. It is not blue, not gray, but the aftertaste of both, poured thinly along the spine of the world. It clings to the sky in a pale wash, neither dark nor light, a threshold shade, fragile as smoke that refuses to disperse. In that color the path reveals itself, a borrowed glow that does not belong to earth or air, but hovers between them. A ribbon of milk glass, unspooling from the hill and entering the first ranks of trees. It glimmers faintly, not with confidence, but with the shy certainty of something that knows it must be followed. The trunks rise like sentinels, each carrying its own weather. One beads with dew, droplets glistening like tiny clocks that count not hours, but pauses. Another exhales a lifted chill, scented of iron and apples stored for winter, a coldness that is more memory than touch. Another leans heavily under moss, its surface damp. It smelled the scent of hidden caves where time itself has gone to rest. Together they create an atmosphere, layered and complex, as though each tree keeps its own season, and you wander among all seasons at once. The ground beneath your feet is velveted with moss, soft as breath, erasing the sound of your steps. Each stride feels as though it occurs somewhere else, at the edge of an old book where margin notes flicker faintly in candlelight. The moss yields easily, then gathers itself again, leaving no trace, no indentation, as though your presence here is both allowed and forgotten at once. You feel less like a traveler and more like a phrase written lightly across the page of silence, destined to fade but luminous while it lasts. Above, an owl stirs. It does not hoot, does not cry, but moves with bureaucratic precision, wings filing through the dark as though recording something official. You imagine it carrying paperwork of feathers, cataloging your passage with invisible ink across the air. The sound is not a call, but a notation, a mark in the vast ledger of the night. You smile without smiling, recognizing the humor hidden in the solemnity, the way dreams often fold wit into their solemn corridors. You reach out to touch a branch. Its bark is rough, scarred, layered with the imprints of storms. Under your fingers it remembers thunder, remembers rain, remembers the ache of lightning split through its marrow. The memory transfers into your skin, a cool, thin throb that lingers. Long after you release it, you carry the sensation with you, a reminder that every living thing stores its history in silence, waiting only for touch to speak. Everything around you moves by committee. The leaves lean together, deciding which direction to bend, rustling quietly as though debating, pausing, then swaying in agreement. Shadows consult with your shadow, overlapping, merging, drafting treaties in the ink of darkness. Even the stars appear to vote, blinking once for brightness, once for dimness, their scattered light adjusting by consensus. You feel yourself drawn into their process, not as outsider, but as participant. Your breath added to the chorus of decisions made in secret. The path bends, and the milk glass glow deepens, pooling in hollows, spilling over roots, slipping like liquid through the narrow aisles of trunks. At times it narrows to a thread, as fragile as spun glass, then widens into ribbons broad enough to walk without thought. You follow without hesitation, trusting that the path is not leading but listening, responding to your presence, weaving itself in response to your need. In the hush, sound sharpens. You hear the faint drip of dew sliding from leaf to leaf, the sigh of moss settling after your step, the creak of branches leaning against one another as though tired of standing alone. Each sound is small, delicate, but together they form a composition, a music played not for the ear, but for the soul. You find yourself slowing, not out of fatigue, but out of reverence, unwilling to rush through this orchestration of silence. As you move deeper, the color of sleep thickens. It no longer hangs above, but wraps around, saturating the air, softening every outline. Trees blur at their edges, their trunks dissolving into the shade, their crowns melting into the dim sky. The world feels painted, not in brushstrokes, but in the smudges left after brush and canvas part. It is not clarity you walk in, but suggestion, and in suggestion lies freedom. A sudden gust rises, stirring the branches. The owl lifts again, silent, filing its invisible reports, vanishing into the pale wash above. The wind carries with it a scattering of leaves, dry and papery, whispering as they pass. They circle your body like fragments of letters, half sentences that cannot complete themselves, then tumble away into the moss. You wonder what they might have said had you been quick enough to read them. But dreams never grant such answers. The glow of the path grows stronger as the wind subsides, as if compensating for the momentary loss of silence. It guides you onward, a ribbon widening, curving between trunks that seem to lean apart just enough for you to pass. At times, the path tilts upward, climbing small ridges, and from their crests you glimpse valleys filled with fog, glowing faintly, like bowls of milk glass set upon the earth. At other times, it dips, slipping into hollows where water glimmers between roots, reflecting light like coins scattered carelessly everywhere. The committee of night continues its work. The stars blink their agreements. The leaves shift their allegiances. The shadows reconfigure their treaties. And through it all, the path waits patiently, unspooling itself in milk glass certainty. A borrowed glow that promises nothing but continuation. You breathe deeply, inhaling the aftertaste of blue and gray, of seasons mingling, of histories remembered by branches. The air feels both heavy and weightless, filled with promises that never needed to be spoken. You exhale slowly, and your breath rises into the color of sleep, disappearing, absorbed into the larger hush, and so you walk on, following the luminous ribbon as it threads further into the forest's shifting heart, carrying with you the taste of silence, the memory of storms, and the sense that every step is part of a vote the night continues to cast. The path bends inward, threading through a tangle of trunks that rise close together like pillars of some forgotten hall. The milk glass glow slips between them, pooling at your feet, spilling across roots, weaving itself around stones, until the ground appears stitched with light. The color of sleep deepens here, thickening like dusk soaked into cloth, until every object feels softened, half remembered, as if the forest has dipped itself in the wash of memory. You notice how the trees lean, not haphazardly, but with intent. One angles toward another as if in whisper, its branches bending close, its bark creaking softly. You pause, listening, and hear the subtle murmur of wood against wood. A negotiation conducted in tones too low for human ears. You cannot understand their words, but the meaning is clear enough. Each tree is telling the others where the wind has been, what the roots have tasted, which stars have watched most intently. Their voices form a congress, and you walk as witness through their long and endless meeting. Shadows gather at the edges of the glow, pooling like ink. They do not move randomly. They lean forward, then back, adjusting themselves in rhythm with your own shadow, as if testing boundaries. You watch them overlap with you, blur your outline, merge, then withdraw. It feels less like threat than diplomacy, a draft of treaties written in darkness. You nod, and your shadow nods back, and the others seem satisfied, dissolving once more. Into the hush above, the stars continue their patient vote. They blink in uneven rhythm, clusters flaring, then dimming, then flaring again. You sense an unspoken conversation, as though the heavens are tallying agreements and disagreements. For a moment, the stars align into a single line of light, like a doorway carved across the sky. It shimmers, then scatters, the vote recorded, the decision withheld. You feel oddly comforted, as if even uncertainty can be sacred when the cosmos holds it carefully. The owl returns, its wings sweeping low, a shadow across the milk-glass path. This time, it carries something in its talons, not prey, not branch, but a scroll of feathers bound together by wind. It circles, once drops the bundle at your feet, and vanishes into the color of sleep. You kneel, reaching for the scroll, and the feathers dissolve into air before your fingers close. Yet a whisper remains, curling through your mind. The record has been kept. You rise slowly, accepting that even in silence, your journey is inscribed somewhere in some ledger beyond. Sight, the air shifts, colder now, carrying scents of apples long since stored, of iron left in rain, of moss damp with hidden streams. You breathe it in and feel your chest tighten with the weight of ages. This is no ordinary night. It is a council of seasons, a parliament of elements, each adding its voice to the chorus of sleep. The path climbs a gentle rise, and from its crest, you see a valley spread below, filled with fog glowing faintly like a sea of spilled milk glass. The fog moves in tides, slow currents rolling back and forth, as if time itself were breathing. You stand still, watching, entranced by the ebb and flow, until you realize the tides match your own inhalations. Each time you breathe, the valley shifts. Each time you exhale, the fog settles. For a moment you feel immense, as though your lungs have joined the rhythm of the world. Descending into the valley, the glow brightens, wrapping around you until your body feels weightless. The fog thickens, closing in, curling into corridors again. This time, the The corridors do not dissolve. They remain steady, forming archways and halls. You walk through them slowly, each step echoing faintly, though the ground is soft with moss. The sound of your footfalls multiplies, as if a council of unseen presences is walking beside you. Their steps do not frighten you, they reassure you, reminding you that solitude here is only a matter of perception. At the heart of the valley stands a circle of stones, upright, weathered, their surfaces etched with faint grooves, like script eroded by centuries. The glow of the path pours into the circle, gathering at its center until it forms a pool of light. You step closer, and the pool quivers, becoming reflective. Within it you see images shifting, a storm bending branches, roots drinking deeply, stars aligning overhead, an owl passing silently across the sky. Each image lasts only a moment, then folds into another, as though the pool is not memory, but decision, showing the evidence gathered by the night before its vote. You kneel and touch the surface. It trembles, then steadies. In its depths, you glimpse your own shadow, seated among the stones, head bowed, as though casting its vote in the council. You draw back, heart slow and heavy, and the pool dims, returning to its quiet glow. The stones say nothing, but you feel their judgment settle around you like a cloak, neither condemnation nor praise, only recognition. You have been seen. The path resumes, curling out of the stone circle, leading you into thicker forest. The color of sleep here is darker, almost blue now, almost gray, settling into its full depth. The glow of the path flickers, not in weakness, but in rhythm, pulsing, as though in time with your heart. Each flicker feels like a syllable, as if the path itself is speaking, a language you cannot quite translate. You follow, listening, your body tuned to the subtleties of silence. The leaves lean again, whispering. The shadows overlap again, merging briefly with yours. The stars blink their tally. The owl files its reports. The forest continues its deliberation, endless, tireless, a congress that will never adjourn. And you walk among it, both participant and witness, both question and answer. At last, the path widens once more, carrying you toward a clearing. From its edge you glimpse a faint radiance ahead, not silver, not milk glass, but something softer, warmer, as though dawn has placed one hand into the night. You step forward, breath steady, ready to enter whatever chamber the forest has decided to reveal. The clearing opens slowly, as though the trees are reluctant to part, as though they wish to keep this secret for themselves. Yet they lean aside, and you step into a space suffused with a softer glow. It is not the silver of the path, not the pallor of milk glass, but a warmth delicate as candle flame filtered through veils of sleep. The air is calm, still, as if the forest has completed its deliberations and now offers only silence as verdict. At the center of the clearing stands a single stone, taller than a person, its surface polished not by hands but by centuries of rain and wind. Dew beads along its face, shimmering like stars condensed to droplets. When you approach, you see that the stone bears no carvings, no inscriptions, only a single faint crack running its length, filled with light that pulses slowly like breath. You place your palm upon the stone, and its surface answers with warmth. Not heat, not fire, but the steady radiance of something enduring. The light within the crack brightens, and for an instant you glimpse shapes moving in its glow, leaves turning, shadows leaning, stars blinking in unison. The whole council of night distilled into a single pulse, a single decision. You do not hear words, but you feel them, an assurance that you are not wandering alone, that every step you take threads into the greater fabric woven here. The warmth travels into your arm, up into your chest, until your heart answers in rhythm. You stand there, breathing with the stone, with the forest, with the sky. Time folds, and you do not know if a minute has passed, or an hour, or if the moment itself is eternal. When at last you draw your hand away, the light softens, withdrawing into the stone, as though returning to sleep. The crack remains faintly aglow, a reminder that the verdict of the night is never final, only continuing. You turn, and the path appears again at the far edge of the clearing, glowing faintly, waiting with patience. As you step toward it, the trees lean back into place, their branches weaving overhead once more, sealing the secret behind you. The air is heavier now, dense with moss and the quiet perfume of apples left too long in a cellar. The hush deepens, pressing gently against your ears, asking you to listen, not to sound, but to silence itself. Far off, the owl moves again, wings parting the fabric of night, invisible but certain. Above, the stars blink their slow vote, some brightening, some dimming, never unanimous, always in dialogue. The leaves rustle softly as you pass, not in dissent, but in quiet agreement. And beneath it all, the path continues, milk glass glow unspooling, leading you forward into the deeper chambers of dream. You do not hurry. You walk slowly, each step an acceptance, each breath a pledge. Behind you, the council has adjourned, its voices stored in stone and shadow. Ahead, the night prepares its next question, its next veil, its next threshold. You follow willingly, carrying with you the memory of warmth, the aftertaste of blue and gray, and the knowledge that every step is already part of a larger silence. And so the forest gathers you deeper still, guiding you toward the next chapter of its endless, unfolding dream. The sound is what arrives first, not footsteps, not wind, not voice, but a feathered hush, delicate as pages turned by rain. It drifts across the fields before you, carrying no urgency, only invitation. Each whisper feels like the soft fall of paper against paper, as though the sky itself were leafing through a book of unwritten nights. You pause at the edge of the meadow, listening, and realize that the silence has been divided into sections, each breath a paragraph, each pause a chapter, the hush arranging itself into a story that only the dusk can read. The light follows, hesitant, reluctant to be seen, carrying so much tenderness. It spills across the grasses in ribbons of faded gold, slips between the shadows like water, poured carefully, refusing to break. Where the fields end, the pathway begins, pale and sure, etched upon the earth as if by chalk on slate. It glows faintly, not brilliant but certain, and you sense at once that it has been writing your name all along, tracing each letter with the hand of someone who learned long ago to be kind. The sight steadies you. The world may be vast, may be endless, but here is a place where your steps are already expected. The grasses bend toward the path as you walk, offering their small metallic songs. Their tips chime together, not clashing, but resonating, a sound like thin bells echoing in a forgotten chamber. You hear them as if from inside your chest, as though someone were walking through your memories with a ring of keys, testing each lock gently, waiting for one to turn. The music is not mournful, not joyous, but precise, a sound that acknowledges what has been kept closed and what still waits to be opened. At the fence post where meadow yields to wood, a jar of moonlight rests with its lid loose. The glass is smudged, its surface clouded with dust, yet inside minnows of brightness circle endlessly, darting slow as thoughts about forgiveness. Their glow shifts with their movements, casting gentle waves across the post, spilling faint radiance onto the path. You lift the jar carefully, holding it to your ear, and the light within hums faintly, not unlike a heartbeat slowed to near stillness. You replace it gently, leaving the lid ajar, as though forgiveness itself needs space to breathe. You step into the first trees, and the temperature lowers with a courtesy that feels like a bow. The air folds around you, cool and composed, a presence that does not announce itself but makes itself known in the absence of heat. Scents rise at once, resin sharp and sweet, leaf tar thick as ink, wet bark heavy with rain, old smoke curling faintly as if from extinguished fires. They layer over your shoulders like a cloak, wrapping you in the history of the forest. Your hands, once restless, forget their errands and hang like unlit lanterns at your sides, ready to be filled with whatever glow the night wishes to grant. Somewhere in the hush, a stream polishes a stone. You do not see it yet, but you hear the rhythm, steady and exact, water striking rock, not for beauty, but for accuracy. Each repetition is a correction, a refinement, the patience of centuries made audible. You recognize the lesson hidden in its cadence, that even the smallest motion, repeated endlessly, becomes its own form of truth. You walk slower, listening, until the sound threads itself into your pulse. The path narrows, winding between trunks, thick with moss, their surfaces luminous in the fading light. The color is deep green, nearly black, yet threaded with silver veins that shimmer when touched by your gaze. You imagine each trunk holding its own secret jar of moonlight within, hidden beneath bark, waiting for the night to loosen its lid. The thought comforts you that every living thing carries its own small treasury of light, no matter how deeply it hides. As you move further, the hush thickens. The grasses no longer sing, the meadow's chimes left behind. Here the silence gathers, differently, not as absence, but as substance, tangible as cloth. You brush against it, and it clings to you, soft and weighty. It fills your lungs when you breathe, settles into your hair, drapes itself across your shoulders. Silence here is not empty. It is presence, vast and alive, and it accepts you without question. The chalk-pale path glows brighter, leading you deeper into the dimness. You follow willingly, feeling its certainty beneath your feet, as though it were less a road than a promise. The trees lean gently inward, forming arches that resemble doorways, each one framing you as you pass, each one recording your passage like another line written into the book of night. Somewhere above, you hear a bird stir, wings brushing against leaves, the sound like a sigh released after years of restraint. The stream's voice grows clearer, a liquid syllable, repeated, reshaped, perfected. You imagine it as a teacher speaking. Two stone, guiding it patiently until both water and rock agree on the word they share. You realize that the path itself behaves the same way, guiding you step by step, reshaping your silence into something closer to the forest's own language. You are not merely walking here. You are being taught how to move, how to listen, how to belong. At the edge of perception, the jar of moonlight glows faintly still, its minnows circling in endless forgiveness. The grasses behind you continue their metallic songs, though softer now, distant. Ahead, the chalk-white ribbon bends into shadow, disappearing into the embrace of deeper trees. You draw a long breath, exhaling into the hush, and step forward, knowing the night has only begun to reveal what waits within. The chalk-pale ribbon carries you down a shallow slope until the sound you have been following becomes visible. The trees part just enough to reveal a narrow stream, its surface lacquered with dim light, its course exact as handwriting learned by lamplight. It does not rush or dazzle, it calibrates. The water leans its body against a single stone mid-current, repeating the same careful stroke over and over until the touch is correct. You stand on the bank and watch the lesson pressure adjusted, angle revised, small corrections pursued with endless patience. The result is not ornament but truth, not a gleam to catch an eye, but an edge the water can trust. And a thought loosens there. Perhaps forgiveness is not a burst of light, but a long patience, something that reshapes the hard places without announcing itself. You kneel and cup your hands in the stream. The water is cool, faint with resin and leaf tar. The taste of wet bark and old smoke softened until it becomes almost sweet. Minnows flicker like syllables. Your palms tremble with the current's precision. For a moment, the world narrows too, the sensation of motion without hurry, change without insistence. When you lift your hands, droplets string themselves between your fingers like small bells without clappers, and the sound you hear is silence arranged into rings. The chalk-bright path crosses by way of flat stones, each set at an angle decided by the stream. You step onto the first and feel the water comb the air around your ankles, not quite touching, measuring. On the second, the current rises to speak in rounded consonants against the leather of your shoes. On the third, your reflection tilts and becomes a corridor of pale fire stretching away beneath the surface. A hallway lined with doors that open and close with the smallest tremor of your breath. You pause with one foot halfway to the fourth stone, and the doors vanish, replaced by a sky of dim silver and a drift of moths. You lower your foot. The stone accepts you as if your weight were a question it has long prepared to receive. Across the stream, the pathway gathers itself and curls between ferns, bright as inked margins. The air carries a trace of the meadow's metallic chime from far behind, the keys of grass still touching one another in your memory. You glance back and find the fence post again in imagination, the jar of moonlight with its loose lid breathing, little minnows of glow. The recollection is so clear that the glass seems to be here also, standing on a root, light circling in its belly like a small, patient schooling. When you turn forward, the same light appears upon a ledge of barca, drip of brightness caught and held. Perhaps the forest has more than one jar. Perhaps every hollow is a jar when light remembers how to linger. The path rises through trunks thick with moss. then levels into a shelf of earth where the scent of old smoke deepens. Under a low bough you find what might have made it, a scatter of charcoal sleeping in a circle of stones, cold for years, yet the air around it wears a faint warmth, the memory of ash that chose to forgive flame for ending. Someone, long ago, must have sat where you now stand. The moss remembers the shape of a body. The stones have learned not to flinch at heat. You stand still and let the circle do its work, which is not to speak, but to allow the quiet to widen. Without losing shape, beyond the circle, a small wooden box sits atop a stump, its lid ajar. No lock, no hinge, just two pieces of wood accustomed to each other. Inside, a handful of objects, a key whose teeth have been smoothed to harmlessness by river years, a feather the color of dusk, a scrap of paper too damp to keep words, a button with thread still clinging, as if it remembers a coat that once traveled through rain. You lift the key, and it warms against your skin, as though relieved to be held. It cannot open anything now, yet it softens your breath, and you realize that opening may not always be the key's responsibility. Sometimes it is yours, the willingness to turn even when there is no lock. A movement passes overhead, so soft you might have imagined it. The branches adjust. A slip of light detaches from the canopy and falls like a slow snowflake, settling onto the path ahead. Where it lands, a door is implied rather than built. Two leaning trunks, a shadow for a lintel, moss for a threshold. No handle, no seal. Only the idea of passage. You step closer, and the air cools in a way that feels like courtesy. You do not push. There is nothing to push. You consent, and the shape yields, and now you are through, though nothing touches you. Inside, if inside is the right word, the light thins to a gray that remembers milk. The stream runs here too, but beneath the ground. You hear it speaking, up through root and soil, continuing its accuracy in places no eye can reach. Your hands lift a little, forgetting again their errands, empty lanterns ready for whatever the night decides to pour. In the hush, a new fragrance arrives, shy and bright, crushed apple skins, the ghost of autumn stored in a cellar. It folds with the resin and the old smoke until the air tastes like patient harvests, like time that has learned the art of ripening. You follow the steady ribbon of path to a low place where fog slumbers as a sheet of breath. In it stands a table of stone, no taller than your knee, its surface polished by weather into a shallow dish. Rain has collected there, and on the water lie thin leaves like letters written in a language both yours and not yours. The leaves drift into words you can almost read, then rearrange as the fog wavers. You lean down and whisper your name, not the one you wear in daylight, but the one the bell once called inside your ribsand. The surface holds it as a ring of small ripples, keeping it until the motion becomes the shape of stillness. When you straighten, you feel watched, but not by eyes. The feeling is the stream's measurement again, expanded to the scale of a grove. It is as if the forest has placed calipers gently around your heart, not to judge, only to know. The sensation should trouble you. It does not. You think of the stone underwater, the long patience of touch. You think of the key without teeth, the door implied, the lid left loose for light. You think of forgiveness like a craft that chooses accuracy over spectacle. The knowledge moves through you without words and leaves a clearer quiet behind. The chalk brightness gathers itself into another bend. Beyond it, a shallow ravine waits, its sides soft with moss, its floor paved with pebbles pale as knuckles. The stream shows itself again, broader now, every pebble a vowel it has learned to pronounce. In the center, on a small sandbar, someone or something has arranged a circle of mirrors, no larger than coins. They face the sky, catching whatever light is left and sending it back as a grammar of glints. You crouch at the edge of the water and look along their plane. The mirrors do not show your face. They show pieces, a hand releasing a jar lid, a path like chalk, a stone under water brightening as it's smoothed, a strip of night like a ribbon tied around a bundle of letters. Each fragment flashes, then yields to the next, as if the stream and the mirrors are editing a memory until it reads true. You reach toward the circle, but the current makes a tiny argument with your fingertips, a polite resistance. You stop, and the water approves, flattening to clarity. A moth alights on one coin, folds and unfolds its wings twice, and leaves. The mirror keeps the gesture, a record of a small, exact forgiveness. Dusk deepens toward the hour when silver turns to slate. The chalk-pale path lights itself a shade brighter, and through the trees you glimpse a tremor of warmth that is not moonlight. It pulses like a heartbeat that belongs to a room. The air ahead smells faintly of linen warmed by hands, of smoke that has chosen to bless rather than cling. Something is waiting, not a revelation, but a chair pulled close to a slow fire, a place where accuracy and kindness sit beside each other and exchange the long version. You cross the ravine by a fallen trunk, soft as velvet. Your palms collect. Green, the stream below, continues its work, the same stroke, the same revision, endless and necessary. At the far bank, the path rises and tightens into a corridor of saplings, and along their thin stems hang small glass charms, like those that once brushed your shoulder in another chapter of this wandering. They are empty and bright. When the wind barely thinks of moving, they do not ring. The light inside them rings instead, a tone the body hears without ears. You pass between them as through a measured music, and the warmth you glimpsed resolves into a gentle glow pooled upon the path ahead. Your hands lift of their own accord, lanterns learning how to hold light. You step forward, steady, already quieter than you were, while the forest measures you one more time and seems, at last, to nod. The corridor of saplings bends until the light ahead steadies. No longer flicker, no longer guesswork, but a true glow. Petals around a center. It burns low in a stone basin, smoke lifting with the delicacy of handwriting across a page. The warmth meets you before you reach it, not a heat to startle, but a presence to soothe. Wooden and plain, its surface smoothed by countless hours of use. You do not wonder who placed it here. You do not need to. The chair exists the way moss exists, the way water decides to flow, because silence requires a place to sit. You lower yourself carefully, and the wood accepts your weight with a sigh, as though it has been holding this place for you longer than you have known how to arrive. For a while, you do nothing but listen. The fire crackles softly, a language without consonants, vowels, rising and dissolving. The stream in the ravine behind continues its steady correction, shaping its stone in patience. The glass charms in the corridor ring with light, though no wind moves, and over it all the hush stretches, wide, unbroken, like a veil suspended between stars. You breathe into it, and the silence breathes back. The jar of moonlight drifts into your thoughts again. Teeth, the button still holding thread, the feather, the color of dusk. None of them were endings. Each was only the beginning of forgiveness. The shape patience takes when it stops waiting to be noticed. The fire burns lower, its glow dimming into embers. You rise gently, leaving the chair behind, and as you turn, the path appears once more, chalk pale, faint, winding forward. You step toward it, your hands lifting slightly of their own accord. Lanterns learning still how to carry light. Behind you, the fire exhales its last flame. Smoke curling into the hush, a promise folded into air ahead. The path bends into darkness, where the forest waits with new questions, new corridors, new jars of light. The stream murmurs its endless correction. The keys of grass chime faintly in the distance. The patience of water shaping stone, the memory of fire choosing to soften. The chalk-pale ribbon brightens beneath your feet, and the hush deepens as though preparing its next page, and so you follow, guided deeper into the dream, where shadows wait like unwritten sentences, and the night prepares its next act of forgiveness. Twilight gathers like silk poured from a quiet height. It falls without weight, without sound, draping itself across the land until every branch, every stone, every breath is touched with its slow surrender. Where the silk pools, the path begins. A soft ribbon of pale fire, its edges blurring, its center steady, laid along the ground with ceremonial care. It feels less like a road than an offering, as though the earth has chosen to guide you with its own light, saving it for this moment, for your passage. The ribbon moves with the grace of handwriting, the kind learned in patience, at a wooden desk, by a window during a long rain. Each curve bends deliberately, never hurried, never careless. And as you follow its loops and arcs, you feel addressed, each turn speaking to you, each line traced as though inscribed for your steps alone. There is intimacy in its geometry, as though the night has written you into its script, and all you need do is read by walking. The first trees gather at the edges, their shadows leaning forward to form a vestibule. They do not crowd, they do not threaten. They arrange themselves into an archway, the way guardians prepare the threshold of a temple. Their needles exhale a scent sharp with storms, but softened, woven together into a shawl. And without asking permission, they place it across your shoulders. The fabric is invisible, yet you feel it clearly. The comfort of rain remembered, of thunder once held and now released. Somewhere close, you hear water stitching its way through pebbles. Not a stream, not a brook, but something smaller, more delicate, a thin seam in the ground, carrying the world's quiet patience. Its thread glints only when night forgets itself and allows a slip of brightness to catch in the current. You pause and listen, and the sound reminds you of thread drawn through cloth, the work of a tailor mending the hem of silence. Each stitch holds the fabric of this place together, unseen but necessary, and you understand that without it, the forest might unravel. A moth drifts from the shadows and settles on the bark of a pine. It is larger than your hand, its wings soft but immense, and upon them is written a language you do not know. Thresholds, passages, beginnings, and endings, all inscribed in veined patterns, each line a translation of something unseen. The moth folds its wings, then opens them, repeating the gesture slowly, as though reciting a phrase over and over. You watch, entranced, and though you cannot decipher the script, you understand it. The moth is not teaching. It is reminding you of what you already carry. Behind it, resin glows in the cracks of the bark, ambered breath sealed into hardened light. It glimmers faintly, catching the twilight, as though keeping a record of sunlight's departures. You touch it with one finger, and the glow deepens briefly, a pulse of warmth pressing into your skin. You realize that the tree has been saving this memory, holding daylight in secret, so that night would not be left entirely empty. The path bends around the tree and continues inward. The twilight silk thickens here, layering itself across branches, until they hang heavy with color, neither purple nor gray, but the in-between tone of endings that have not yet decided what they are. You walk softly, each step taken as though stepping through a dream that might scatter if you pressed too hard. The shawl of storm scent tightens across your shoulders, not in restraint, but in reassurance, and you realize you are no longer chilled. The air carries warmth now, not of sun, but of presence, as though the night itself has leaned close to keep you company. The seam of water follows beside you, hidden by moss, revealed only in glints and murmurs. At times it disappears entirely, and you fear it has ended, but then the sound returns, faint and steady, as though reminding you that continuity often hides itself to be rediscovered. You find comfort in its persistence, the smallness of it, the way it insists upon stitching the dark with silver thread. They gather on trunks, on stones, on the very path you walk. Their wings carry the same language of thresholds, though each is written differently. One glows faintly at the edges, another shifts its color when it moves, another seems nearly translucent, showing not itself but the bark beneath it. They do not move when you pass. They wait, silent scribes, holding their inscriptions. Their wings, a manuscript the forest has written for anyone who learns how to read with their heart instead of their eyes. You move carefully among them, each step an act of reverence. The chalky ribbon of path glows beneath, illuminating their bodies in soft halos. When one lifts into flight, the air rustles like a page turning, and you realize how many books the night has hidden here, waiting not on shelves but on wings. The vestibule of trees closes behind you, and ahead the forest thickens. Shadows gather like listeners, leaves shift in quiet debate. The air grows denser with the breath of moss and rain. Yet the ribbon of pale fire continues, unwavering, carrying you forward, as though the script has already been written. You walk slowly, listening, allowing the shawl of storms to rest upon you, the thread of water to guide you, the moths to show their letters, the resin to glow with stored light. Each image feels like a fragment of language, and together they begin to form a sentence. You cannot yet read it, but you feel it growing, unfolding around you, preparing to speak, and so you continue, the silk of twilight clinging to your skin, the ribbon of pale fire steady beneath your feet, the forest arranging itself into a grammar of thresholds. Every step carries you deeper into the hush, deeper into the meaning the night is writing, and you know that whatever waits ahead will Be less a revelation than a continuation of what has already begun. The ribbon curves inward, and with each turn the twilight silk grows heavier, darker, as though it has gathered weight from all the trees it draped. The moths multiply in this thickness, rising from bark and stone until their pale wings mark the air like fragments of parchment, torn and scattered. They drift slowly, not frantic, their movements composed, each flight a word spoken without sound. You follow their script, as if the air has become a manuscript in motion, the lines rearranging themselves with every wing beat. The seam of water, once hidden, widens now, lifting its voice. It flows along the path's edge, shallow but insistent, its silver thread glinting like a vein of ore exposed. The stream is not constant, it pauses, gathers itself, then releases in little rushes, like someone hesitating between words, searching for precision. Pebbles glisten beneath its skin, worn smooth, their shapes so rounded they resemble syllables perfected by centuries of repetition. You kneel briefly, run your fingers through the current, and feel the stones beneath push back gently, as though reminding you that even patience has texture. The moths gather more thickly as you rise. Some settle on your arms, your shoulders, wings cool against your skin, carrying their inscriptions with them. Their presence does not burden you. Instead, it feels as though the language of thresholds has chosen to rest closer, writing itself upon your body. Each flutter is a punctuation mark, each pause a comma, each lifting of wings a reminder that the sentence is not yet finished. The path carries you into a corridor of pines where resin thickens, glowing faintly in amber streaks. The air smells sharper here, edged with storms, still folded in memory. The moths press closer, forming a pale column around you, and you sense the forest has shifted from welcoming to watching. Not hostile, not suspicious, but attentive, like an audience waiting for a speaker to begin. You realize that in this moment it is not the forest speaking to you. It is you being read by the forest. A stone rises at the center of the path, taller than your waist, worn smooth, its surface divided by a single groove. Resin trickles into the groove, filling it with light until it shines like a vein of fire. The moths circle the stone, tracing its outline, then disperse, landing on branches and roots as though making room for you. You approach carefully, place your hand upon the groove, and the light deepens, pulsing once. The resin warms under your palm, and for an instant you see corridors unfolding beyond the stonearcus of light, stairways of shadow, doors glowing faint in the distance. Then the vision folds shut, leaving only the pulse fading into stillness. You step back, breath unsteady, and the moths lift again, drifting down the path. You follow them, the seam of water widening further until it crosses your way, forcing you to wade through. The current is shallow, barely above your ankles, yet it holds weight, a tug as if urging you backward. You resist, stepping slowly, until your body learns its rhythm, and then the tug lessens, becoming guidance rather than resistance. The water accepts you, polishes your skin as it polishes stones, carrying you to the far bank where moss rises thick as velvet. Beyond the stream, the forest grows stranger. The moths cling to every surface, their wings shimmering faintly, until the trunks and stones seem carved with glowing script. Patterns form and dissolve, spirals, constellations, staircases. You do not try to memorize them. They were not meant to be remembered, but to be received. Impressions written into your silence rather than your mind. You carry them without effort, and already you feel them changing you. Like water rounding stone, the seam of water disappears beneath the ground again, though its murmur remains. Muffled but present, a hidden counsel beneath your steps. The shawl of storm scent across your shoulders tightens, then relaxes, adjusting, like hands guiding you forward. Twilight silk folds lower, brushing against your hair, your face, until you feel veiled by its touch. The forest narrows into a passage, a tunnel made of shadow and moth wings. You step within, and the world softens further, dissolving into outlines and suggestion, as though you are walking inside the memory of twilight rather than twilight itself. At the tunnel's end, light blooms not sudden, not harsh, but like resin, glowing deeper, like embers coaxed into flame. You emerge into a hollow where the trees bow outward, creating space. In the center rises another stone, taller this time, nearly twice your height. Its surface split by multiple grooves filled with resin. Each groove glows faintly, and moths trace them in patient patterns, wings brushing against the light as though tending it. The grooves intersect, forming shapes that resemble thresholds. Doorways, arches, windows, gates. Each one seems to pulse faintly, as if alive. You step closer, drawn by the glow, and as you approach, the moths lift away, leaving the stone bare. The light within the grooves intensifies, and for a moment the stone resembles a lantern, its body dark, its cracks aflame. You lay your hand upon it, and the grooves throb gently, like a heart beating beneath stone. Images flare, a river splitting into many channels, each one leading to a different sea. A corridor branching into endless halls, each lined with closed doors. A single path of chalk, pale beneath twilight, unspooling, forever forward. The vision does not ask you to choose. It shows you the truth. Every path is a threshold, every step another door. The light softens, the moths return, settling once more, wings folding over the stone as though sealing the vision within. You step back, carrying the glow still in your chest, your ribs warm as if lined with resin. The shawl of storms loosens slightly, and the twilight veil lifts from your face. You realize the forest has finished its reading of you, for now. The path resumes, curving away from the hollow, its pale fire steady as ever. The moths scatter, some staying, others drifting ahead, guiding your way. You follow. The waters murmur beneath the ground, continuing, the forest's silence folding over you again. Ahead, the ribbon bends toward another clearing, where a new glow waits softer, warmer, like dawn misplaced in the night. And you know, without hurry, that the next threshold is already prepared. The clearing gathers slowly, revealed as though the forest were reluctant to open its hands. The ribbon of pale fire leads you into its center, where the light changes again. It is not twilight's silk, not resin's amber, not the moths' inscriptions. It is warmer, more human, as though dawn has misplaced a fragment of itself and left it burning here in the night. At the clearing's heart stands a low stone altar. Upon it rests a single object, a bowl filled with water. The surface trembles faintly, though no wind stirs, as if stirred by breath too quiet to hear. You step closer, and the moths accompany you, circling gently, their wings scattering pale script across the ground. When you look into the bowl, you do not see your reflection. doors that open and close. Yet this time the visions are slower, softer, as if meant not to instruct but to console. Each image carries a calm certainty that every passage is part of the same journey, that no door is truly lost, that even endings fold back into beginnings. The water steadies, and in its stillness you glimpse only a pale glow, waiting. You dip your hand into the bowl. The water is cool, almost sweet, tasting faintly of rain mixed with resin. You lift it to your lips, and when you drink, the warmth that had filled your ribs spreads through you more deeply, settling into your breath, your silence, your steps. It is not fire, not electricity, but continuity, a thread binding you to the path, to the moths, to the resin, to the silk of twilight itself. The moths lift together, rising into the canopy, their wings turning the air into a manuscript of silver. Phrases they drift upward until they vanish into shadow, leaving the bowl still and quiet, the altar bare. You bow slightly, not out of ritual, but gratitude, and turn back to the ribbon that waits at the clearing's edge. It glows steady, pale fire unspooling, and you follow. Behind you, the altar fades into the hush, the bowl forgotten but not gone, its water still trembling in the dark. Ahead, the forest thickens, shadows leaning closer, twilight deepening into the first true blue of night. The seam of water murmurs again beneath the ground, threading its correction, polishing stones unseen. The shawl of storm scent loosens from your shoulders as though its work is done. The resin glows, faint in distant trunks, recording the sun's departures. And the moths, though gone, have left their script upon your skin, faint but felt, a memory of thresholds carried within. You walk slowly, hands lifting slightly, as though remembering how to become lanterns. The hush folds around you, denser now, promising another threshold just beyond sight. The ribbon bends, narrowing into shadow, and you follow, your breath steady, your silence deep, your body carrying the warmth of the bowl like a secret. And so the night gathers you deeper, readying its next chapter, its next veil, its next sentence in the book it has been writing all along. It begins with the hush of bells underwater, a sound that does not strike, does not ring, but folds. Each note is a ripple rather than a toll, carrying its weight like a dream submerged beneath the surface of memory. You pause as it reaches you, uncertain whether you are hearing with your ears or with the water hidden in your own blood. The resonance curves through your chest, gentle but insistent, and you feel as though the night has drawn you into its submerged cathedral, a place where sound becomes silence and silence becomes hymn. The path gathers itself from this hush, dim. Loops of pearl light coil at your feet, weaving slowly around roots that rise like questions no one asks aloud. Their shapes are knotted, gnarled, curling back upon themselves as though too shy to reach outward. Each root glows faintly at its edges, as if lit from within by an old decision, a hesitation preserved in wood. You step carefully, not to answer, not to solve, but simply to walk among them as one walks through unanswered prayer. Ferns stretch along the path, their fronds unfurling into wide green fans. Droplets cling to them, though no rain has fallen. Droplets suspended like tiny clocks, uncertain whether to begin. Now and then one lets go, falling to the ground with the softness of a thought dismissed. The air around the ferns is cool, tinged with the scent of damp stone and hidden water. You brush one frond with your fingertips, and the dew leaps onto your skin, leaving a chill that lingers like a brief vow. At the bend of the path, a fox waits. Its coat is the color of rust and smoke, burnished by twilight's last hand. Its eyes shine with the memory of lanterns, though no flame burns near. The fox does not run, does not approach. It becomes instead the pause in your journey, the moment when movement is suspended, when the air tightens and waits. You meet its gaze, and for an instant you feel yourself mirrored, not in shape, not in form, but in presence. The fox is not an animal here. It is threshold, embodied, the embodiment of decision before choice, of silence before word. You take a step, and the fox fades. Not into the undergrowth, not into shadow, but into pause itself, dissolving as though it were nothing but breath held too long. The path remains, the hush of underwater bells swelling faintly again, and you walk forward into the absence it left behind. The pause lingers inside you, a space that will not close, a doorway without walls. Behind the bend rises a ridge of stone. It leans across the path, not barring it, but blessing it, a presence heavy as sleep. The stone hums with a choir too low to be heard. You do not catch its music with your ears, but your bones answer, vibrating subtly, aligning with harmonies you cannot name. Each step upon the ridge feels like entering a different octave, your weight shifting into sound before it becomes silence again. The choir does not perform, it simply exists, humming through centuries, through roots, through the marrow of the forest. The air thickens here, palpable as water. Scents emerge and weave together, copper, sharp and metallic, wet linen, heavy with rain, the faint and fading breath of extinguished stars. Copper grounds you, linen soothes you, stars remind you that even endings leave fragrance behind. Exhaling, you feel your body softened, carried, almost rewritten by the air itself. The pearl light of the path loops onward, circling again and again as though drawing patterns you cannot read. At times, the loops tighten, forcing you to step in careful spirals. At others, they widen, allowing space for you to walk as though through a slow dance. You do not resist. You allow the path its script, knowing that every curve is part of its folded language, every loop a syllable in the hymn of silence. Above, the canopy darkens into near black, though faint glimmers of light break through stars caught in pockets, their brightness diluted by layers of mist. They seem smaller here, distant, almost shy, as though reluctant to intrude upon the hush of bells. Still, their presence matters. Each flicker a reminder that silence is not emptiness, but fullness, held gently. The ridge ends, sloping into a hollow where water gathers in shallow pools. Their surfaces are smooth, mirror-flat, reflecting not the sky but the pearl loops of the path above them. You walk between them, your steps careful, aware of how fragile reflections can be. One pool shows you a doorway made of fern fronds, arching and braided. Another shows you a lantern swinging though no hand carries it. A third shows only the fox, eyes bright, waiting once more. You bend to look closer, and the fox's gaze meets yours again, this time from beneath the water. Then the image ripples, shatters, and leaves only your face blurred. Dissolving. You rise slowly, unsettled but calm, and continue. The pools fade behind you. The air shifts again, copper softening, linen lingering, stars dissolving into distance. The path straightens briefly, pale light stretched like a thread pulled taut. Ahead, the hush of underwater bells grows louder, folding into your chest, asking without words that you follow deeper into the submerged him. And so you do, each step carrying you further into the dream's echo. Each breath another toll that folds, another silence that sings. The hush of underwater bells deepens until the forest itself seems to breathe in their rhythm. Each toll folds like cloth being pressed into water, sound bending into silence instead of breaking through it. You walk inside their resonance, as though the air has become liquid, your movements slowed and softened, your thoughts stretched into long, fluid arcs. The pearl loops of the path shimmer faintly, their curves multiplying, weaving in and out of one another like ribbons plaited by unseen hands. You step carefully, though the ground holds you steady, the glow firm beneath your feet. The ridge of stone continues in fragments, lifting here, dipping there, shaping the path into terraces. Each rise hums differently, as if tuned to another bell, each descent folding you into lower tones. The choir within the stone swells, still too low to hear outright, yet your bones carry the sound, vibrating gently in time with your steps. At moments you feel as though the ridge is carrying you rather than the other way around. Your weight borrowed, your breath conducted like part of an endless chord. The fox returns. It stands upon a higher ledge of stone, eyes glowing with lantern-bright memory, coat rich with rust and smoke. It does not run, and it does not wait in silence. This time, it moves, slowly, deliberately. It walks parallel to the path, its steps quiet, its body flowing like another ribbon of light. You follow without hurry, trusting the rhythm it carries. The fox never looks back, yet you feel seen, measured, as though your very presence has been accepted into its geometry. The ferns thicken around the ridge, their fronds arching high, catching droplets that still fall from nowhere. In this deeper place, the beads no longer tremble before letting go. They fall with assurance, each drop striking stone or leaf with the clarity of punctuation. A sentence is being written, though you do not yet know its words. The fox pauses once beneath a great fern, and when it moves again, the bead it disturbed falls into the pearl glow of the path. Where it lands, the light flares briefly, a syllable punctuated by silence. The air changes again. Copper lingers, sharp and grounding, but linen dominates, now cool, damp. The scent of cloth hung to dry and forgotten in the rain. It folds around your shoulders, like another shawl, this one gentler, worn thin by centuries of storms. Beneath it lingers the faint taste of extinguished stars. Faint smoke and light mixed into breath, a reminder that even celestial endings leave traces. You inhale, and the combination feels like preparation, as if the forest is dressing you for entry into a chamber you have not yet seen. The fox leaps lightly down from its ledge and crosses the path in front of you. When its paws touch the pearl glow, the light bends inward, collapsing into itself, then flaring outward in a ripple. The ripple spreads down the path in both directions, illuminating arches that were not visible before. They rise from the ground. In luminous curves, pearl light hardened into thresholds. The fox steps through one, and though the arch dissolves behind it, the glow lingers on your skin, telling you that passage has already been made, that you may follow. You walk on, and the arches rise again and again, each one forming just before you reach it, each one vanishing after you pass. They are not gates, not barriers, they are acknowledgments. Each arch whispers that you have entered, that you have continued, that you are inside the next fold of the dream. The fox reappears at intervals, sometimes on the path ahead, sometimes higher on the ridge, sometimes waiting in the reflection of a pool, its eyes never dim. Each time you see them, you remember lanterns carried through fog, steady light that did not falter. The pools return too larger, this time their surfaces rippling with the toll of bells. You peer into one and see a stairway descending beneath water, its steps glowing faintly, vanishing into depth. Another pool shows a corridor lined with shelves, each shelf filled with jars of moonlight, their lids ajar, minnows circling within. A third reveals only the fox, seated at the center of a circle of stones, eyes closed, as though listening to the bells from beneath the surface. You look away before the images can dissolve, carrying them with you like half-remembered phrases. The ridge gives way to a wide platform, stone flat and open beneath a canopy of shadow. The bells hush here, as though bowing, their toll folding into stillness. The fox sits at the far edge of the platform, tail curled around its body, gaze steady. Behind it rises a stone wall carved with grooves, resin glinting in each fissure. The grooves form no obvious pattern, yet the light within them pulses like slow breath. The wall hums with the same hidden choir, and as you approach, the tones shift, still too low to hear, yet clear enough to feel. The fox lifts its head, and the wall responds. The grooves brighten, and from their intersections, light spills outward, forming lines across the stone floor. These lines shape themselves into circles, overlapping, intersecting, weaving patterns that resemble ripples spreading across water. You stand at their center, and the glow intensifies, humming through your feet, your legs, your chest. For a moment you are certain that you, too, are one of the bells, submerged, folded into sound, part of the underwater hymn. The fox rises, steps into the glow, and vanishes, leaving only a shimmer behind. You do not feel abandoned. Its absence is another pause, another threshold. You breathe, steady, patient, and the glow fades slowly, the wall dimming, the patterns dissolving back into the stone. The choir continues, low and steady, guiding you forward. The pearl path reappears beyond the platform, narrower now, its glow subdued, leading into a darker corridor of trees. The bells hush once more, folding into near silence, but their resonance remains in your bones, your breath, your steps. You follow, aware that the fox may return, aware that the arches may rise again, aware that the dream continues, always waiting, always unfolding. And so you walk deeper into the hush, carrying the pause, carrying the lantern-bright gaze, carrying the toll that folds instead of strikes. The forest waits, its thresholds prepared, its bells ready to sing again. The path narrows into shadow, pearl light, faint as breath. Each loop glows more softly now, as if conserving itself, as if the bells have folded their hymn into a single thread entrusted to your steps. The hush is deep, thick, the kind that swallows every echo before it can escape. You walk slowly, steady, feeling the weight of silence settle around you like water. At the far end of the corridor, the fox appears once more. It waits in the glow, its body luminous with rust and smoke, its eyes bright with the memory of lanterns. This time it does not pause or vanish. It crosses the path before you, then stops at the edge of the trees. Its head turns, gaze steady, and for a heartbeat you feel its eyes pressed into your own, not asking, not warning, only reminding you that thresholds are never endings. Then it steps into the undergrowth and dissolves like a flame pressed gently into ashdot. You remain in the pause it left behind. The air thickens, tinged with copper and linen, faint with extinguished stars. You inhale deeply, and the silence answers. It carries the residue of bells, the echo of ripples, the resonance of stone. Your body feels tuned, as though each step from now on will sound a note you cannot hear but must trust. The pearl ribbon threads onward, looping less now, straighter, more direct, leading you into another hollow. Pools gleam faintly there, their surfaces trembling with reflections. You look down and see not your face, but thresholds, waiting, arches of fern, jars of light, doorways written on moth wings. Each vision quivers, dissolves, reforms. You realize the forest is reminding you every image you've passed remains, folded into memory, carried forward with you, whether you know it or not. At the hollow's center rises a single stone, smooth and round, its surface damp with dew. You place your hand upon it, and the dew slides onto your skin, cool and brief. The stone hums faintly, the echo of the choir still alive within. It vibrates once, then stills, as if passing the song into you, asking you to carry it forward. You bow your head, not in ritual, but in acceptance. When you lift it again, the path glows brighter, resuming its steady thread into the night. The hush folds tighter, preparing its next chamber as you walk from the hollow. The pools dim, the stone vanishes into shadow, the bells grow distant, yet their presence lingers inside you, folded and steady, like a lantern hidden beneath ribs. The fox's gaze remains too, hovering in memory, a pause carried forward. You walk softly, unhurried, knowing that each threshold deepens the dream. Each silence prepares the next. The pearl ribbon bends into the forest, where shadows lean closer, where twilight turns to true night. You follow, your breath even, your silence complete, the hymn of bells folded into your steps, and the dream waits, patient, ready to open its next page. The night arranges itself into a corridor of breath. You feel it before you see it, the rhythm of inhalation and exhalation, the way the air itself expands and contracts as though the forest has taken on lungs of its own. Each inhalation is stitched with silver, threads of light glimmering faintly between branches. Each exhalation is colored with ash, soft gray veils drifting downward to brush your shoulders, your hands, your face. It is not oppressive. It is intimate, as though the night has chosen to breathe with you, lending you its own cadence, making you part of its body. The path trembles like a drawn string, pearl light vibrating along its length. Every step you take plucks it, sending ripples outward into the hush. The sound is too faint to hear, but the resonance travels, brushing the trunks, stirring the moss, unsettling the still pools of shadow. You realize that the path is not merely guiding you, it is singing, and your movement has become the bow that draws its voice. The song is simple, little more than vibration, yet it feels ancient, the kind of hymn that does not need melody to be holy. Branches lift overhead, arching into the semblance of a vaulted ceiling. They hold no lanterns, no flames, no jars of light, and yet they glow. Leaves shimmer from within, veins alight with a faint phosphorescence, as if each carries its own dream of illumination. The canopy becomes a sky of tiny lamps, every leaf a wick, every branch a candelabra. The glow spills downward, softer than moonlight, steadier than fire, bathing the corridor in warmth that feels borrowed from memory. You walk beneath, touched by the impossible comfort of leaves that choose to shine at a curve in the path. You encounter a fountain carved from stone. Its edges are worn smooth, its basin wide and shallow, but no water rests within it. Instead, feathers fill the bowl, layered upon one another, damp from dew. Their edges gleam in the lantern leaf light, each catching the glow like a wick catching flame. White feathers, gray feathers, feathers tinged with rust, all arranged as though some unseen hand has gathered what wings once released. The sight makes you pause. The fountain, once meant for water, now holds only what can fall, what can drift, what can be shed without dying. When you step closer, the feathers stir. No wind moves, no hand touches them, yet they shift, tremble, lift slightly from the stone, as if your presence has reminded them of wings, of flight. They do not take to the air. They simply quiver, rustling softly, whispering against one another. The sound is fragile, like pages turning, like a lullaby hummed in sleep. You lean closer, and for a breath you think you hear words woven into the rustle. Not language, but intention. We remember. Then the stirring ceases. The feathers settle. The fountain returns to stillness. You move on, carrying the impression with you, the memory of feathers choosing to speak. The path straightens briefly, the glow along its length steady, unshaken. The corridor exhales again, ash-colored veils, brushing your shoulders, cooling your skin. In their wake drifts a fragrance, subtle and layered, smoke, faint but persistent, mixed with apples ripened long ago and kept in cellars of stone. The scent wraps around you, both homely and spectral, reminding you of autumn evenings where orchards burned their branches, of hands polishing fruit before winter. It carries both comfort and melancholy, as though the air itself mourns seasons already spent. Amid the fragrance, another sound joins the hush, the sound of a page turning. It is close, so close you glance behind, expecting someone walking with you, a lantern in hand, a book open to be read aloud. But no figure walks there, no flame follows. Each turn of the page is clear, paper shifting, corner lifted, then folded down. Again you stop, listening, and the sound stops too. You breathe, step forward, and it begins once more. The corridor is reading. Reading you, you walk carefully, more aware of your weight, more attuned to the path's trembling string. Each step feels counted, measured, noted. You do not feel judged, you feel recorded, as though your passage itself is the story, and the corridor is writing it in breath and ash, in feathers and apples, in the glow of leaves. Deeper you go, and the canopy thickens. The glowing leaves sway without wind, casting patterns that shift like script across the ground. The pearl ribbon flickers beneath your feet, sometimes bright, sometimes faint, its vibration steadying as you match your pace to the corridor's breath. The inhalations lengthen, silver threads stretching farther into the distance. The exhalations deepen, ash drifting heavier, settling briefly before dissolving into air. Another fountain appears, smaller, hidden between roots. Its basin holds fewer feathers, but one lies upright, balanced impossibly upon its quill. You lean closer, but before you can touch, the feather quivers and tips gently forward. It lands among the others, and the sound of a page turning echoes once again. You realize the feathers are pages, the wings of birds, rewritten into script. Their presence a library, gathered without shelves. The hush deepens. The corridor exhales once more, and ash-colored veils thicken, swirling around you until your skin prickles with cold. The pearl ribbon beneath your feet flares brighter, pulling you forward, its vibration rising as though urging continuation. You obey, walking carefully, your breath joined to the corridor's breath, not tolling, not striking folding, their resonance hidden beneath the sound of feathers, beneath the turning of pages, beneath the corridor's exhale. A submerged hymn, reminding you that thresholds are everywhere, even here, where the night itself arranges you into its story. The leaves brighten as though the corridor has decided to think more clearly. Their veins gather light and send it outward in slow pulses, small heartbeats traveling through the canopy. Each pulse descends and touches the trembling path, and the pearl line answers with a soft vibration that moves into your ankles, your knees, your ribs, until your breath falls into step with the ceiling of green lamps above you. The night inhales silver again, longer now, and the exhale of ash carries a hush like brushed linen, whispering along bark and bone. The sound of the page turning grows more frequent. It remains close without revealing itself, the corner lifted. The sheet given to air, the brief resistance, the settling. You begin to anticipate it, the way one anticipates surf after hearing the first distant break. It does not come from left or right, not from behind or ahead. It comes from the corridor itself. If the passage is a book opening around you, and your walking is the hand that keeps it from closing. A third fountain appears no taller than your thigh, cradled by roots that rise like cupped hands. Feathers fill it as before, but these are darker, rain-heavy, their quills lacquered with dew. When you lean over the basin, the feathers tilt together and reveal beneath them a shallow film of water, so still it resembles preserved breath. In the leaf glow you see sentences written in ripples, too small to notice until you are this near, a ring for each footfall you made since entering the corridor, expanding to the stone and trembling against the feathers, as if asking to be read. You whisper a name you haven't said in years, and the rings collapse inward, then smooth, then hold a page laid flat by careful hands. The page turning comes again, and this time the leaves respond. One branch lowers, another rises, as if a line has been finished and the eye has drifted to the next. The path, thin and taut, answers with a higher hum, the pitch that comes when a string decides to carry more truth. You follow where the pulses lead, and the scent of smoke and deepens, warm now, not cellar but kitchen, not memory but presence. It mixes with the ash veils until the air tastes of late autumn sweetness worn thin by fire. A quiet that knows the long version of light. Beyond the third fountain, the corridor narrows, then widens into a hush where the glow gathers in a single bowl of radiance. At the center stands a lectern of stone, simple and low, its top dusted with ash. Feathers lie beside it, like quills laid down after a long night. No book rests there, yet the sound continues as if pages still turn, and the ash upon the lectern ripples minutely, as wind would ripple water. You place your fingertips on the edge and feel a pulse lift through the stone, a thready heartbeat that does not belong to rock. The leaves above brighten in answer, and the pulse steadies, and the ash shifts as though welcoming your attention before it begins to write. Lines appear, not carved, not inked, the faintest channels of warmth moving across the ash, arranging themselves into a script you nearly but not quite understand. Letters open and close like small doors. Curves breathe. Strokes hesitate and continue, leaving room for silence, the way a good sentence leaves room for air. You do not try to capture them. You allow them to pass over your sight and into your chest, where they settle with the softness of feathers, finding their place. When the page turning sounds again, the ash clears itself, and the lectern waits for the next breath to begin anew. You look up, and the corridor has changed again. The leaves shine not only with their own light, but with reflections of small, contained flames lanterns that are not there, or are there only as intention. Between trunks, you glimpse shadows, seated as if before low tables, hands moving, heads bent. The silhouettes are not men or women, not animals, not even forms exactly. They are acts of reading given shape, attention, patience, the poised stillness before understanding arrives. They turn pages that are not pages by light that is not light, and the glow of their concentration knits the corridor more tightly than branches do. A rustle rises behind you and becomes a wing, then many wings, no assault of sound, only the polite brush of feathers giving way to air. You do not turn, the corridor is reading. You do not interrupt a reader whose mouth is closed and whose eyes are lit from within. The pearl string underfoot tightens further. The vibration climbs your spine and strikes the bowl of your skull with a quiet tone you feel rather than hear. For a heartbeat, everything stops: the ash in the lectern, the feathers in the basins, the silver stitches in the corridors, lungs, and the page turns again, slow and final, as if closing a chapter inside the night's larger book. When motion returns, it does so on a different key. The leaves' pulses accelerate, the feathers stir more readily, the ash writes faster. You sense a threshold, near, not a door, not an arch, but a change in the way the corridor breathes. Ahead, the path brightens to milk white for 3 steps, and then subsides to pearl. The sequence repeats, 3 bright, many dim, like a code you are meant to walk rather than solve. You match it without thinking, your heels landing on light, your toes into shadow, and the corridor's lungs adjust to your rhythm until the inhale and exhale belong to both of you, and neither. Another fountain waits, taller than the rest. Its rim is fretted with lichen-like lace, and the feathers within are the palest you have seen, nearly colorless, as though carved from frost. No dew coats them. They glow with a self-contained brightness that feels less like reflected leaf light than like memory, finally remembering itself. You touch one gently. It is cool but not cold, dry but not brittle, and when your fingertip lifts, a filament of brightness clings to your skin a moment before it dissolves. In the basin's center lies a single apple, unbitten, its skin the red of embers turned inward. It smells faintly of smoked sweetness and carries, impossibly, the quiet of a page not yet read. You do not take it, you bow to it, and the feathers lift as if bowed to in return. Past the basin the corridor opens into a delicate cloister of trunks. The leaves here burn brighter, the pulses steadier. The path's string softens, no longer taut, a ribbon relaxed after being played. The page turning recedes to the far end of the passage, where darkness collects, like ink pooled in a well. In that pooled ink you glimpse a hand not human, not entirely a hand at all. Lift an unseen sheet and let it fall. And with that gesture the bells return, no longer distant, their fold carried on the corridor's exhale. The tolls gather below, hearing, and push upward through bone, through the bowl of your ribs, until your breath becomes a bell that rings by closing dot. You step, and the lectern behind you writes once more, and the feathers in all the basins answer with a small, consenting shiver. The silhouettes between trees lean forward as though a sentence has arrived. The leaves hold their glow perfectly still, 1,000 tiny lamps protecting their wicks from wind that never comes. The path ahead narrows to a filament and slides. Beneath, a veil of ash so fine you feel it on your lips. It tastes of burned orchards and letters sealed with wax and tears that evaporated before they fell. You lift your hands as if to part the veil, and the ash does not cling. It understands. It spreads softly to either side, and the passage beyond reveals itself as a room made of breath walls that expand and contract, a ceiling that lifts and settles, a floor that hums with the vibration of the string you have walked. In the center is no chair, no altar, no bowl, only a space the exact size of your presence, and the certainty that the next page will not turn unless you stand within it, and let the corridor read you in full. You step into that space. The leaves brighten once, a pulse that crosses the vault and returns. The bells fold through you, a wave that makes the ash rise and settle, rise and settle. Somewhere the apple breathes sweetness into the dark. Somewhere the fountains remember wings. The hand in the ink-laden end of the hall lifts another unseen sheet, and the corridor waits not, impatient, not afraid, listening to the weight of your steps as if each were a word it has been longing to understand. The space accepts you quietly, folding around your presence as though it has been waiting all along. The air deepens, expanding and contracting with a rhythm that feels like your own lungs stretched into something vaster. The silver stitches of breath glimmer through the walls, threading themselves in and out, and with each exhalation the ash-colored veils fall gently across your shoulders, settling without weight. You do not brush them away. You allow them to rest, knowing they are not meant to burden, but to remind. Above, the leaves hold their glow steady, no longer pulsing, but sustaining, 1,000 tiny lamps frozen in patience. The hush between them thickens until it resembles fabric, a canopy woven from silence. Beneath it, the pearl path trembles less, the vibration lowering, as though the string has reached the end of its note. It hums through you like memory fading. leaving only its outline behind. The fountains whisper from behind, feathers shifting faintly, as though restless now that you have stepped beyond them. You think of the pages they held, the wings they once were, the sentences rustling in their sleep. Their sound fades as you breathe in the corridor's larger rhythm. But the impression remains, every feather a word, every fountain a book, every basin a library too patient to close. The page-turning sound comes once more. Close now, impossibly close, brushing the space beside your ear. You do not turn to see who or what holds the book of this corridor. You understand that the reader is the night itself, its hand unseen, its gaze unblinking, its patience infinite. The ash stirs with the motion of the unseen page, and your skin tingles as though the letters are being written directly onto you. For a moment, you are both text and reader, both word and silence. The bells fold again, deeper this time, the toll rising not as sound, but as weightless pressure. It fills the space around you, then sinks inward, resonating through your ribs until it feels as if your breath itself has been tuned to their submerged hymn. You close your eyes and listen not for meaning, but for belonging. The toll lingers, softens, dissolves, leaving you quieter than before, emptied yet more whole. When you open your eyes, the corridor has begun to dissolve. The glowing leaves dim, returning to green. The ash veils thin, dispersing into nothing. The pearl path straightens, its trembling subdued to a steady thread. You take a step, and the space contracts behind you, sealing itself as though it were never there. Only the faint taste of smoke and apples remains, the afterimage of feathers stirring, the echo of pages turned by a hand you will never see. Ahead, the path bends into deeper night. The silence thickens again, not as corridor but as open field of shadow. Somewhere within it, another threshold waits the next sentence in the dream, the next chamber prepared to breathe you into being. And so you walk on, steady and unhurried, carrying the bell's hush, the feathers' rustle, the silver stitches of breath, into the heart of night that waits to continue the story. Somewhere the ground remembers rivers. The path carries you forward, and though no water runs, you feel its absence as presence, the silence shaped by what once flowed here. Stones litter the earth, not jagged but rounded, their bodies polished into patience, their edges smoothed by centuries of currents that no longer pass. They rest in clusters, as though still huddled against the stream that once kept them. When your foot brushes one, it shifts with a sigh, the sound of weight remembering motion. The air smells faintly of clay left wet too long, that scent of unfinished earth, pliant yet unyielding. It folds around you, rich and damp, reminding you of basins emptied, vessels half-formed, hands leaving their impressions before withdrawing. You kneel, pressing your palm into the ground. The soil is cool, and with the coolness rises a sound not carried by wind or root, but drawn from within the earth itself, the distant creak of oars slipping into sockets, wood against wood, water receiving its rhythm. It is not loud, not near, but it lingers in your bones, as though your hand has awakened a river hidden beneath the silence. The path bends downward into this memory. Pale light collects between the ghost banks, illuminating channels where currents once drew their lines. The glow pools, where eddies might have been, curls into loops where whirlpools once waited, threads itself into the hollow of a dried meander. You walk as though tracing the bones of something long vanished, yet not gone, its shape still cradled by the land. Branches arch high overhead, ribs rising to form the body of a vessel long vanished. Their curves bend inward, woven by darkness, into the silhouette of a whole. You walk inside its remains, though no timber was ever placed here, no keel ever laid. The forest itself has chosen to remember as vessel, as ark. The hush deepens, reverent, as if every shadow were a hand laid across silence, guarding what should not be forgotten. Halfway through the ribbed arch, you pause. The air thickens, and you hear again the creak of oars, clearer now, wood turning against unseen sockets, water folding away from phantom blades. The sound quickens, then slows, then drifts into stillness, leaving your chest hollow as if you have lost the rhythm of your own breath. You step forward carefully, each stride deliberate, matching the echo of strokes that no longer strike. At the hollow of one tree, a lantern hangs. Its iron frame is old, pitted with rust, but the flame inside burns steady. It casts no flicker, no waver, as though it belongs to another physics. Its glow is pale and unwavering, a steady orb that neither spreads nor dims. You lean closer, and the flame's silence presses into you. It burns in another language, one without crackle or hiss, a speech of stillness, of devotion. For a moment, you wonder if the flame belongs to you, lit from some forgotten threshold, carried forward until the tree itself offered its hollow as host. You do not touch the lantern. You bow your head slightly, and the flame steadies further. As though bowing back, when you pass, its light does not fade. It waits behind you, a patient sentinel of whatever is carried in silence. Beyond the lantern, the horizon begins to flicker. At first it is subtle, a faint shimmer across the edge of your vision, like heat haze rising from stone. Then it steadies, becoming a pale current that runs low to the ground, threads of silver weaving across the distance. You stop watching. The land remembers itself as river, not with water, but with light. The currents ripple, bending and flowing, their pace unhurried but insistent, carrying no spray, no sound, only the shimmer of persistence. They remind you of memory itself, the way it refuses erasure, the way it flickers even when denied, the way it insists upon being river, though no liquid remains. You step closer, and the shimmer brightens. For a breath, you think you hear lapping water. For another, you imagine your own shadow lengthening across the ghost channel, drawn forward as though pulled into its stream. The path joins this mirage, winding along its edge, pale glow mingling with the silver flickers. You walk between them. On one side the memory of rivers, on the other the certainty of the path, both carrying you forward. The ground softens beneath your feet, moss giving way to clay, clay giving way to stone, stone giving way to silence. The hush grows deeper, the air denser, and every inhalation tastes faintly of riverbeds, of silt, of what is carried away only to be remembered. You pause at a bend where the currents split, one shimmering thread veering left, another right. The path continues, straight, unconcerned, steady. You glance toward the left current, and for a moment it seems to hold figures' oars, dipping, bodies leaning, breath rising. You glance to the right, and there you see only stillness, as though the river had become a mirror, reflecting only the night. You look ahead, where the path gleams, and realize that both currents, whether movement or stillness, have been folded into its pale fire. You continue forward, carrying their duality within you. The ribbed branches arch higher, forming a vaulted chamber above the ghost-revored bed. Shadows pool in its hollows, not heavy but vast, and the pale currents reflect faintly in their depths. You walk as though moving through the belly of a ship, its planks unseen, its sails absent, yet its voyage continuing. The oars creak again, softer this time, a farewell rather than a command. You breathe into the silence, and the sound dissolves. The horizon flickers more brightly now, as though the remembered waters are preparing to reveal their truest shape. You follow the glow, the path steady, your steps slow, the hush gathering around you like mist. Ahead, you sense another lantern waiting, another threshold prepared, another silence ready to burn. And so you walk deeper into the ghost of rivers, carrying the sound of oars, the scent of clay, the steady flame that burns without language. The shimmer along the horizon grows steadier as you continue, gathering itself into threads that rise slightly from the ground, as if the memory of water is attempting once more to lift its own weight. The threads braid and unbraid, weaving pale currents that slide past the rounded stones without sound. You walk beside them the way one walks along a shoreline at dusk, reading the tide line for what the sea returned, a twig polished into ivory, a feather clotted with salt, a shell that has forgotten its ocean but not its listening. Here the offerings are different, in ribs of driftwood bleached by years of absence, curls of clay hardened into runes, and pebbles arranged by the invisible hand of current that is no longer current at all. The ribs of branches overhead bend closer, their curve ship-like, their shadows cross-etched like planks. You feel the hull forming around you, the world remade as vessel without material, a craft built from alignment more than timber. In the angle of two trunks you sense a prow. In the slope of a hill you sense a keel. In the hush itself you hear canvas drawing breath. Nothing moves, and yet everything leans the way a body leans toward travel. You realize the ground does not simply remember rivers. It remembers the idea of going, the bone-deep geometry of leaving and arriving, the muscle memory of returning to a place whose shoreline never stays the same. At a bend where ghost banks rise in soft shelves, the path lifts onto a bar of pale clay. Your footprints appear as dim hollows, and each hollow fills at once with a film of silver. As if light were water enough, the film trembles, closes over, then seeps back into the ground, leaving your step smoothed and the clay unscarred. You test it with your palm. Coolness rises again, and with it the oar sound, wood settling into its socket, a slow pull, water receiving the blade. The rhythm is patient, older than any song you could sing. It accumulates inside your chest until your breathing spreads into long strokes. The lantern appears again, another hollow in another tree, the iron frame rough with rust, the flame a pale, unwavering seed. It burns without smoke, without fidget, as if it had promised long ago to spend itself quietly and has kept its word ever since. You stand near and feel no heat at all, only steadiness, a temperature of trust. When you step away, it watches you go, or seems to. the way a harbor light watches regardless of who sails and who stays. Beyond the lantern, the silver currents fold into a wider channel, a valley hollowed by ricochet, in gentle crescents, as if they had been pushed and gathered by seasonal floods that never came. Tufts of grass line the ghost shore like reeds that forgot to grow tall. In the channel's center, light runs the length of an invisible stream, brightening where it deepens, dimming where it shoals. You descend to its edge and walk along the margin, close enough to see the shimmer fret itself into ripples. When you exhale, the ripples move away as water would, then fade, leaving the brightness even and calm. The air carries the faintest taste of tin and clay-cool metal, wet earth interlived, with a sweetness so pale you almost miss it, as if apples were stored somewhere underground and the soil remembered the scent. You let it pass through you without naming it. The vessel of branches narrows overhead, the whole tightening around your steps, as a corridor at sea tightens around a bell at the prow. Somewhere within that woodwork, you sense the submerged choir from another chapter of night, tones too low to hear, aligning your bones to their key. It is not a music you could hum. It is the kind that teaches posture, the way a tide teaches shorelines how to stand. In a shallow, light-filled basin stands something like a mooring made of stone, 2 uprights and a crosspiece, no more than the height of your chest. Suspended from the crosspiece hangs a chain of pale sand, each link an oval of glow, held together by nothing but the habit of joining. The chain sways slightly, though no wind moves, and each swing makes a sound close to memory, a rope drawn through a hand, a knot deciding to release. You touch one link, and it goes quiet beneath your finger, then resumes once you let go, as if the chain is content to bear memory, but prefers not to be owned by it. The ghost river splits around a low island, a rise built from stones so smoothed they could have been ovals set into a rosary. The path leads across, pale light picking its way between rounded backs. In the island's center, you find a shallow depression lined with silt that glitters as though powdered with ground mica. Here, the oar sound is closest. You can almost hear the water lifting off the blade, the hollow just before splash, the hush of a stroke finished cleanly. You kneel and spread your fingers. The silt chills your skin and leaves a dark shadow on your palm, not stain, but absence, as if your hand briefly held the shape of what once passed through here. You rub your hands together and the shadow thins to dust, then to nothing. And yet the sense of holding continues. When you rise, the currents ahead converge into what could be called a confluence if it were water. The brightness thickens there. Pale streams joining, braiding, sheeting into a broad plain that tilts away into a deeper hollow. The ribs of branches arc closer, their lines tightening like the frame of a great hall. You feel the pull of that joining, not in your feet, not in your eyes, but in your sternum, the place where lantern light would hang if your chest were a cabin. The pull is not demand, it is permission writ large. A shape waits at the confluence, simple as a letter, impossible as a door standing where no wall has ever been. 2 uprights of shadow and a lintel of light, the opening filled not with darkness but with a very slow current moving nowhere. You approach and find that the air is cooler at the threshold, the way air is cooler above deep water, even on warm nights. In the lintel, a faint inscription glows, not words, Not marks, more like the idea that language was about to happen and then chose to remain symbolic. It reminds you of the flame's mute eloquence, of the jars of light, of the bells that fold instead of ring. You put your hand near the frame, not touching, and the coolness answers as if through glass. A drift of fog comes low along the ground and gathers at your ankles, behaving like eddy water, turning slowly around a piling. The rounded stone's vowels polished by river patience hum without sound, and their arrangement suggests a sentence the shore began and never finished. You listen for the oars, but they have fallen back, making room for a new geometry of motion. In their place, you hear something quieter, the slide of hull on water, remembered, the weightless feeling of a boat slipping free. It goes through you like a tremor. You step aside to let a current that is not a current pass. Nothing touches you, and yet your coat lifts slightly, as if the night itself has risen and flowed around your edges. The ribs of branches creak with a politeness you learned back where owls filed feathers into forms. The lantern in the hollow behind you steadies its pale seed. The iron smell of wet clay deepens and then eases, and, very far off, a bell folds one note into the understructure of silence. The vessel of forest and the vessel of your breath align for an instant so precise you feel a click deep in your chest. An oar settling into its socket. Across the confluence, on the far ghost bank, a third lantern glows in a narrow trunk, its flame holding the same speechless grammar as the others. Between you and it, the mirage water slides with a patient glide, a page turning without hands. You could wade and never wet your knees. You could stand and never finish the sentence. The door of light at your side waits without posture, without insistence. A threshold that will only ever be an answer to consent. Somewhere underfoot, the old bed of the river presses back with the cool of kept promises. The stones shift, the ribs breathe, the lantern holds. The currents lean toward one another with the courtesy of travelers meeting where roads once crossed. You draw a breath long and even and feel it move through you the way a tide moves through a channel prepared for it long before it arrived. When you let that breath go, the confluence brightens subtly, as if your exhale added a small tributary of light. The door remains, the lantern waits. The vessel keeps time with a choir too low to hear. You understand that whatever happens next will ask nothing loud, nothing sudden, only this, that you carry the river's patience into your next step, and let the ground that remembers teach your body how to cross what is already prepared to bear you. The confluence holds its shimmer like a thought not yet spoken. Silver threads drifting together until they lie across one another in quiet agreement. You stand at the edge, your breath folded into the hush, your body aware of the vessel. The forest has built around you ribs of branches overhead, lanterns steady in their hollows, rounded stones beneath your feet. The ground remembers, and so do you. The door of light beside the ghost banks waits without urgency. Its frame glows faintly, a lintel drawn from absence, uprights of shadow steady as sentinels. When you step near, the air cools further, a tide rising against your skin, though no water flows. You do not cross, you linger, listening to the subtle sound of silence, adjusting to your presence, the way a hull adjusts to the weight of another passenger. Behind you, the riverbed exhales. The scent of wet clay grows faint, replaced by the lighter sweetness of something unseen. Perhaps apples long ago buried in cellars. Perhaps stars extinguished, but still fragrant in memory. You breathe it in, and the ghost river flickers brighter. Pale currents threading into the pearl ribbon of the path until both glow as one. The oar sound stirs. Faintly once more creak, dip, hush, but only for a heartbeat, as if to remind you that absence is never empty, that motion continues even when unseen. Then the sound folds back into silence, leaving you to carry its rhythm within your chest. Your ribs remember the click, the alignment, the readiness to move forward. A lantern burns across the ghost bank, its flame silent, steady, unyielding. You watch it through the shimmer of remembered waters, and its light feels like a promise already kept. No smoke, no flicker, only endurance, as if the forest has hidden in its hollows the proof that some flames never abandon their watch. You bow your head toward it, not as ritual, but as gratitude. And the lantern brightens once, a subtle acknowledgement. The door of light dims, not closing, but withdrawing, leaving you with the sense that thresholds do not vanish when ignored. They wait, patient as stone, until the body is ready. You step away, following the ribbon of the path as it threads out of the confluence, climbing gently toward darker woods. The shimmer of ghost currents lingers at your side, then recedes, folding itself into the horizon, refusing to be lost, refusing to forget. You walk slowly, each step balanced between what was carried away and what remains. The hush thickens, tender and deep, and your hands lift slightly, as though remembering the feel of oars, as though preparing to hold a lantern of your own. The path hums faintly beneath your feet, steady as a keel, certain as memory. And so you pass from the ghost of rivers into the promise of another chamber, carrying with you the scent of clay, the sound of submerged oars, the silent flame that burns without language. The vessel does not vanish. It continues inside you, ribs of breath, keel of silence, lantern of steady flame ready for the next threshold that waits in the dream. The air itself glows, as if moonlight has been ground into dust and scattered through the trees, and from that glow the path is born. It lies before you like a ribbon of quiet certainty, edges feathered, center pulsing faintly as though it remembers the heartbeat of a distant sea. The forest accepts your arrival without surprise. Pine needles shift like a body making room on a long bench. Owls place their ellipses carefully in the silence. A hidden stream speaks in silver clauses, unspooling the long sentence night is forever revising. You feel the pull in your chest of a language you knew before speech, a grammar of breath and shadow. It is not ground and branch alone that surrounds you. You are walking into language rather than landscape, and every syllable underfoot is luminous. A faint smoke lingers, old hearths, quenched torches, letters sealed and opened, all distilled into a fragrance that sits at the back of the throat. It is not warning, it is memory. You inhale and taste rooms with stone floors and low windows, cups turned mouth down on wooden tables, a hand reaching for a latch without urgency. The path listens to your breath and answers by brightening a shade, as if this powdered moonlight recognizes your mouth as a vessel it once filled. The first trees deepen their lean, drawing their shadows together like gowns at the hem until a vestibule forms. Entering it is like pushing through a curtain of attention. Everything attends to you without looking. The glow underfoot steadies, and you realize how carefully the night has been practicing the act of welcoming. Years upon years of learning to open without spilling itself. Your shoulders lower. Your hands, which have learned to hang like unlit lanterns, remember how to be still. A staircase appears, carved not from wood, but from overlapping shadows. Steps stack themselves out of darkness, rising only halfway to nowhere. The handrail is a seam of warmer air, and when you set your palm upon it, you feel the trace of other palms, the warmth that remains long after a body withdraws. You climb 3 steps and stand where the stair refuses to decide what comes next. From this small height, the forest rearranges itself into ancestry. Trunks like lines of ink, recalled by a letter your grandparents wrote and never sent. Leaves, like halting verbs that could not find their tense. You descend with the care the night prefers, and the stair folds back into its own dusk. Beyond it, a window frame hangs alone between 2 trunks, unattached to any wall, a brittle geometry catching the powdered light. Within the frame, fog breathes, lit as if a candle sits behind it, patient and undecided. You do not cross to it. You stand and let your gaze hold still until the fog's surface slowly becomes a lake, until the candle becomes a star, drowning gently and resurfacing with the dignity of ancient swimmers. Then your gaze releases, and the window is only fog again, only light maintaining its politeness. The path turns to water without becoming wet. Lanterns rest upon a low basin in the forest floor, each set afloat. They drift in slow circles, never touching, their flames small as remembered voices, their reflections trembling but unbroken, as though the pool itself holds them in cupped hands. Around the basin the needles form pews. You do not sit, you let your pulse stand and listen. The lanterns nod to one another, like old neighbors who no longer tell the same stories but share the same quiet afterward. You bow once and step away, and their circles resume as though a sentence finished itself and began again without complaint, deeper. The luminous ribbon loosens from the ground. It hovers a fingertip above the soil, the way a whisper hovers near a lip's edge. The forest notices your weight, shifting lighter, and rearranges its shadows so that nothing startles. You walk as if across, breath held perfectly still. The ground beneath you becomes a book you are not pressing to read. You are only keeping it open. 2 trees lean tenderly until their crowns meet, stitching an arch with stars. The stitches are uneven, which is what makes them beautiful. One star sits too low and refuses correction. Another flares when you do nothing at all. Beneath this arch, air cools with the ease of a lifted veil, and you step into its blue corridor, where light has the flavor of porcelain and the fragrance of linen dried in wind. The bell from earlier nights returns, as the idea of sound rather than sound the toll slowed, until it is only a pressure at the edge of speech. A door opening without hinges, that is when you feel it. A door woven not of wood or stone, but of faint sound, the slowed bell's breath, and the murmur of leaves, murmuring a vow. You do not see it, you are seen by it. Throat softens, tongue loosens from the roof of your mouth. You draw near, and the glow you carry folds into shadow, as if tucking itself in the door is not entry or exit, It is the place the world pauses for you to become narrower and truer. When you step, no seam opens and no seam closes. Yet the air changes, taking on the intimacy of a room at dusk, where someone has extinguished a candle, not to end evening but to hear it better. The trees grow closer, not to hinder, but to guide your eyes. The path's pulse slows. In the leaning hush, the ground gleams with the faint patience of mica. Each grain a tiny lantern, each lantern an alphabet the night keeps for itself. Beyond the star-stitched arch, this room of forest has its own physics. Leaves, lit from within, hold their brightness steady rather than throwing it back. You pass among little planets that will never set, and your skin becomes a surface that remembers light even when it leaves. Whispered voices arrive, not from beyond but from your marrow, where old thresholds stored their weather. They speak in the grammar of reassurance, phrases that mean do not hurry, phrases that mean do not diminish, phrases that mean the road is also walking. In the distance, a staircase of shadows rises again, this time narrowing into a filament that appears to lead upward into nothing. You approach and see that each step is written on air by a moth the size of your palm. Its wings open and close, writing and erasing the step. You place your foot and the step commits, glowing for the length of your weight. You climb until you are exactly as high as understanding, and then you climb no further. The moth folds its wings, and the staircase folds with them. You are not disappointed. This is how the night insists on kindness. A clearing follows, not wide, not solemn, but careful. In its center, a platform of roots rises, braided like a rope coil. Upon it rests a single bell turned on its side, as if sleeping. You know it is heavy. You know as well that weight belongs to it, like meaning belongs to a poem, not a burden, a decision. You touch the curve, and coolness enters your fingers without assuming your temperature. For no reason you can defend. You whisper a name you never learned how to keep. The bell remains silent, but you feel the name laid down inside it. Content to rest where striking is neither necessary nor refused. The ribbon of light leads you on with the restraint of a good guide, letting you notice what you have learned to notice. Trunks glisten with resin-like tears, frozen mid-breath. Staircases of fern descend into syllables of damp. At knee height, a corridor of fog rehearses and forgets the corridors of your childhood home. Nothing offers itself as a solution, and nothing requires solving. You are not being tested. You are being read to. When the window frame returns, it holds more fog inside than outside. The candle behind it has moved closer. Its flame is shaped like a listening instead of a tongue. You put your ear to the empty space where glass would be and hear the smallest possible door unlatch, not ahead, not behind. In your chest, a latch, releasing the idea that you ever had to carry any weight alone. The relief is so silent you might mistake it for air. The lanterned basin appears once more, this time not in a hollow, but at the edge of a fall of ground, the way a balcony holds a city. The lanterns rock like boats in miniature, the water so calm it draws other calmnesses from you. You kneel and cup a reflection instead of water. It pours through your fingers like an old promise kept without ceremony. Somewhere beyond the trees, a fox moves without narrative, the warm grain of its body sliding between fern and shadow with the dignity of a thought. choosing not to speak. Now the trees incline in two ordered lines, their boughs meeting to form a nave. You walk that aisle without the theater of prayer. Even the owls hold their quills. The only sound is the stream, which has become a line of commas, each pause not emptiness but breath. You find yourself walking softer to spare the commas their work. A warm hand suddenly appears and is only bark. A curtain breathes and is only mist. A fire glows and is only coals left much earlier by someone who agreed to leave the place better than they found it. Everything keeps its appointment with itself. You, too, keep yours, allowing your voice to be the sort of quiet that keeps starlight from falling apart. You reach another threshold, this one visible, two trees curved toward each other until their crowns kiss. Between them hangs a door woven of faint sound. The toll of the bell slowed into a single tone, the murmur of leaves saying yes. You stand very still and let the tone take your measure, the way a tailor would, gentle, accurate, uninterested in disguising you. When it has finished, the tone opens and the door holds its shape. Inside is a chamber with no walls you can touch. The air changes temperature where the corners should be. A book rests on a stand made of night. Its pages are fog. Its letters are a coppery scent that arrives only when you agree to stay. You read by smelling, by standing, by feeling your spine align with the old grammar. The bell will keep your unkept names with tenderness. When you look up, stars have collected in a bowl above the nave, bright as brass coins before the first hand. A few drop slowly, as if the bowl were being tipped by a patient host. Where they land in the high leaves, the leaves remember and shine, and the shine travels down the limbs into the ribs of the trees, and from there into the ground, and from there into the pearl path, and from there into the part of your body that has not wanted to be bright for a while. That part glows and does not apologize. You continue until a slope lowers you into a long corridor of roots. It is cool there, and the powdered moonlight lowers its voice. At intervals, small doors present themselves halfway into earth, as if grown rather than built. A few are ajar and release drafts tasting of winter cupboards and a summer room where someone left a bowl of peaches and forgot to tell anyone. One door whispers childhood laughter you remember not having. Another whispers a shore you have never stood upon with feet, only with sleep. You accept all of it without ledger or refusal. This is how the forest returns what you didn't know. You lost under a name you do not need to give back. When you rise from the root corridor, the chair is not an invitation to stay. It is a reminder that movement can sit inside stillness, like a violin inside a case. You rest not because you are tired, but because resting is one of the ways to read. The powdered glow gathers on your sleeves and cuffs like this world's snow, and the moth with the written wings settles. You follow it into a grove, where the floor is all moss and the ceiling is all listening. In its bark, resin keeps a record of sunlight's departures and bards. Final window awaits without wall and shows you not fog, but a room you recognize as the future we carry like a cup. The candle behind it is a star again, but nearer, and a moth flutters around it without fear of being burned, because in this room the flame does not hurt what writes it. You turn away because some recognitions are gifts only when they remain. Unspent. Night distills itself into darker blue. The sort of blue a bell might choose to wear when it intends not to ring but to remind. The path, moral and mild, takes you along the edge of a small lake that has kept its heat from the day and now lends it to the air. On that surface several lanterns ride, and you understand at once they are not the same as before and exactly the same as before. You send them a thought like a folded letter. Go on. Within that arch, a door woven of faint sound waits, recognizable now by the way the tone lifts a corner of silence like a page. You draw close, and the glow folds again into shadow, which is not vanishing but modesty. Time gathers like fabric, and you step. The chamber beyond is small and everywhere at once. The powdered moonlight thins into the sort of brightness that belongs to polished bone, or a word kept safe in a mouth between teeth and tongue. You are the foot and the way, the lantern and the water, the bell and what does not need striking to be heard. When you leave, you do so by becoming longer, as though your shadow took your elbow and taught you how to walk. The trees make room, the owls sign the line, the stream puts down a comma you do not step on. The ribbon of quiet certainty smooths out, its edges less feathered now, its center a deeper pulse. The powdered light lifts from the bark and gathers into the air, again like pollen that chose to become music instead of seed. Far ahead, like breath, you understand that this night is only one room among many in a house that has learned to live without walls. You carry forward the warmth in the handrail you cannot see, the window that lets you hear your latch, the bell that keeps the names, the lanterns that drift without drowning, the moth that writes and erases your steps so you will not be required to carry them. You cross the last of the grove, and the forest changes its key by half a tone. Everything familiar remains. Everything familiar opens. The powdered light thins. The starlight thickens. The ribbon becomes a road again, humble and sufficient. A breeze turns a page you didn't know you were inside and sets it down gently. So gently you do not lose your place, and you go on, quieter than before, brimmed with a light you do not need to hold in your hands. Entering the next chamber of nightwear, new leaves will glow from within, where farther bells will fold their notes, where another door woven of sound waits, patient as moss, for your deliberate, listening step. Mist gathers at ankle height, not rolling but rising straight up, as though drawn by invisible strings. It collects in pale columns, wavering like incense smoke in a hidden temple. Each thread of vapor climbs until it meets the leaning branches, where it dissipates into the canopy as though it were returning to some secret sky. Walking through it feels like moving through a room of half-forgotten prayers. Every step stirring memory without ever speaking it aloud. The path continues to glow, but here its light is muted, softened by the veil. It trembles, less like a string, more like a breath, each inhalation mirrored by the mist's slow ascent, each exhalation collapsing the vapor back into still pools around your ankles. You feel yourself caught in the same rhythm, lungs widening, then narrowing, body weaving into the corridor's silent fabric. From the mist, small shapes emerge, feathers, pale and sodden, lifted upright by currents unseen. They do not fall. They hover a moment, suspended, as though testing the gravity of the dream. When you pass, they drift after you, not hurried, not hostile, but curious, like notes carried along a line of music no one has played in years. They settle eventually on the path, quivering, their barbs glinting faintly in the pearl fire. You look back and see them tracing your passage, a breadcrumb trail of flight that does not require wings. The mist thickens as the ground slopes downward. You descend into a hollow where rounded stones sit in patterns too deliberate to be chance. They resemble ribs again, curving inward, shaping the hollow into the likeness of a chest cavity. Mist pools here, chest deep now, swaying gently, and the stones vibrate faintly as though carrying a hum from some submerged choir. You stand in its resonance, chest answering chest, breath answering breath. The hum is too deep to be heard, but too steady not to be felt. Through the ribs you glimpse a lantern iron frame, steady flame burning inside a hollow trunk. This flame is different. Its color is softer, paler, like the glow of bone beneath skin. It flickers once when you approach, not from air, not from movement, but from recognition. You stand near, and its silence presses into your silence until the two become indistinguishable. You imagine this flame has never been carried. It was lit here, long ago, for no reason other than endurance. The path leads on, and mist follows. Now it rises higher, waist level, chest level, so that you walk inside its suspended weight. Branches above bend down as though to steady themselves against the fog, their leaves trembling faintly in the glow. Each step sends small ripples outward, concentric circles of disturbance, and each ripple carries a whisper, not words, the tone of whispers, the suggestion of voices folded into damp cloth. You catch none of them clearly, but the impression remains. You are being remembered, not just seen. Ahead, the mist parts into a long corridor lined with mirrors of water. They are not basins, not pools dug into earth, but mirrors risen from the ground itself, surfaces flat as glass, their depths unreadable. The glow of the path bends and doubles in each, so that you walk between endless corridors, your body mirrored upward and downward, forward and behind. For a moment, you cannot tell if you are the figure walking or the reflection being walked into. In one mirror, you glimpse yourself holding a lantern you do not yet carry. In another, your hands are already lifted, lit like wings, though you have not moved. In a third, the fox returns, sitting beside you, patient, as though the two of you were walking together even now. Each vision dissolves before you can study it, returning the mirror to its pale calm. The mist above them coils slowly, indifferent to the shifting truths. The corridor of mirrors ends at a basin carved from stone. This one is filled not with feathers, but with mist itself, condensed into liquid form. The surface glows faintly, as though the air has been gathered into a vessel and taught how to wait. You lean closer, and your reflection shivers into a doorway. Door of smoke, trembling but distinct. Its frame is not stone or wood, but inhalation and exhalation held together. The door does not open, it breathes. Each time you exhale, it exhales with you. Each time you inhale, it fills itself. You lift your hand, and the door fades. Only mist remains. The path threads forward, thinner now, a filament barely glowing. You follow with deliberate steps, careful not to disturb more than you must. The mist rises higher still, brushing your chin until it feels as though you are walking in the lungs of the forest. each breath taken not by you alone, but by everything around you. The ribs of branches creak faintly, the rounded stones sigh, the hidden choir hums, the lantern flame steadies. Everything breathes. You breathe. Then, as suddenly as it thickened, the mist begins to thin. It drops away in ribbons, unraveling, back into the soil, curling into the hollows of stones, dissolving into the trunks of trees. You emerge into air clearer than before, though faint with the residue of smoke and wet linen. The pearl path brightens once more, strong again, firm. Beneath your steps, behind you, the mist closes like a book, sealing its pages until you are ready to reread them. Before you stretches another threshold. 2 trees lean inward, their branches woven into an arch, heavy with dew. Droplets hang there like punctuation, marks, trembling, waiting to fall. As you approach, one loosens, drops, and lands on the path with a sound like a bell folded beneath water. The tone spreads outward, invisible but certain, marking this as passage, as entry, as continuation. You bow slightly beneath the arch, not from ritual, but because your body knows instinctively to yield when silence becomes sacred. The dew drips onto your shoulders, cool, precise, and the corridor of night opens once more, waiting to gather you into its deeper hush. The arch of dew holds its silence above you, droplets trembling in their patient descent. When you pass beneath, the hush deepens, and for a moment it feels as though the world has forgotten movement. The forest leans closer, not to listen, but to steady itself, as though the act of your walking has unsettled an ancient balance it has long held. The pearl path brightens gently, steady beneath your feet, and you continue, your breath aligned to the rhythm of what the mist has already taught you. The air here is clearer, yet each step carries the echo of fog. You feel it in the way silence clings to your skin, the way your chest rises, as though carrying more than air, the way your thoughts trail behind like ribbons left in current. The mirrors of water have vanished, yet the memory of reflections lingers, and you are aware of yourself, multiplied, doubled, folded into unseen corridors. Somewhere, in one of those reflections, the fox still waits. Somewhere, a lantern still steadies its flame. The path narrows into a passage of roots, their surfaces damp with dew. Each root glistens like rope drawn from a river, laid here to remind the ground of what binds it. You step carefully, the pearl glow pooling between their curves, your balance held as though by unseen hands. In the distance, a low vibration continues, the same submerged choir that hummed within the ribs of stone. Its tone is faint, but it reaches you, weaving its resonance into the arch of your back, the slope of your shoulders, the steadiness of your breath. A lantern glows in another hollow, the third you have seen tonight. Its flame is smaller, softer, no larger than the nail of a thumb, yet it shines with the certainty of a star refusing to abandon its place in the sky. You bow to it in passing, and the flame answers not by flickering, but by remaining utterly still, its stillness the greatest acknowledgement of all. Beyond the lantern, the ground slopes upward. The pearl path lifts with it, a filament of light unspooling toward a ridge where branches part to reveal a wider sky. You climb slowly, each step loosening the weight of mist, each breath easier, freer. At the crest, you pause. The horizon flickers faintly, not with stars, not with moonlight, but with pale currents, the ghost of waters rising again, refusing to be forgotten. The sight steadies you. You understand that rivers, mist, lanterns, bells each is only another name for memory, another way the night holds what has passed without ever letting it vanish. You carry this recognition in your chest as the path bends forward, slipping once more into the embrace of shadow. The hush closes softly, branches weaving. Overhead, shadows gathering at your sides. The pearl glow steadies, and your hands lift without command, lanterns learning stillness. You walk slowly, as though stepping inside a sentence the forest has been saving. Each step another word written into its silence, and so you leave the ridge, carrying with you the scent of clay, the taste of dew, the breath of mist that rose like prayer. The corridor of night waits ahead, preparing its next veil, its next threshold, its next page.